On the 28th of November, 1953, Frank Olson, a scientist researching biological warfare for the United States Army, fell to his death from the 10th floor of the Manhattan Statler Hotel. Did he jump or was he pushed? 9 days before his death, Olson, who talked about leaving his job and told his wife he made a terrible mistake, had secretly been dosed with LSD by a CIA operative. Over 20 years later, United States President Gerald Ford personally met with Olson's family to offer his apologies. Olson's sons are convinced that their father's death was not the result of a nervous breakdown. Possibly triggered by the secret dosage of LSD. Rather, they believe he was murdered to prevent him from exposing secrets. The story of Frank Olson inspired a Netflix TV series by Errol Morris, but his death is still surrounded by mysteries. Olson's work had brought him into contact with the man who would secretly drug him, Sidney Gottlieb, head of one of the most famous projects in CIA history, MK Ultra. In Poisoner-in-Chief, Sidney Gottlieb and the CIA Search for Mind Control, Stephen Kinzer tells the incredible story of a man who saw himself as a noble patriot and an explorer while destroying people in the United States and abroad. Gottlieb was born in 1918 as the son of the Hungarian Jewish immigrants. A chemist by training, Gottlieb was recruited for secret United States research into chemical warfare. As Kinzer describes, the United States started researching the use of bacteria and chemicals for military use during the Second World War. The way Kinzer tells the story, Gottlieb was itching to contribute his skills to the research. He had wanted to join the war effort but was refused because of his club foot. According to Kinzer, Gottlieb felt indebted to the country that provided a safe home for his parents and made his academic education possible. The United States was not the only country researching new warfare techniques. Nazi scientists also worked on chemical weapons, infamously experimenting on prisoners for their research. An unknown number of scientists, who according to the Nuremberg criteria should have been punished for war crimes against humanity after 1945, received a new life in the United States in return for information. Whenever a scientist had a, quote, blemished past, quote, as Kinzer observes, United States officials rewrote the biography, systematically expunged references to membership in the SS, collaboration with the Gestapo, abuse of slave laborers, and experiments on human subjects. This was Operation Paperclip, named after the paperclips used to mark the files of the scientists that were brought over to the United States, over 700 in total. That's where they dosed unsuspecting Johns when they were buying sex favors, right? Maxwell, thank you for the follow while I was shooting some hoops. Doc Boggs, I appreciate it. Didn't get to thank you prior. Nazi war criminals were not the only source of United States knowledge. Japanese scientists who worked with Unit 731, the secret chemical and biological warfare research unit of the Imperial Japanese Army, also benefited from secret deals. The history of Unit 731 is even less transparent than that of its Nazi equivalents. What we do know is the stuff of nightmares. Unit 731 subjected prisoners to vivisection and organ removal without anesthesia to study the effects of various diseases on humans. Operation Sea Spray. Kinzer describes how, in the context of the Cold War, United States officials concluded that such research had produced knowledge that might prove decisive in a future war. Rather than winding down after the war, the United States biological and chemical research project grew. United States officials fixated on the notion that the Soviets were ahead of the United States in developing new forms of warfare. This justified experiments on United States citizens as well. In 1950, scientists carried out a large test in which supposedly harmless but traceable germs would be released into a United States city. They chose San Francisco, reasoning that its chronic fog would disguise germ clouds. During Operation Sea Spray, a Navy ship sprayed a bacteria into the air for 6 days along the coast of San Francisco. In the days that followed, 11 people checked into hospitals and 1 person died. Although it hadn't proved to be as harmless as they anticipated, the researchers deemed the experiment a success. It proved to their satisfaction that effective dosages can be produced over relatively large areas. Gottlieb's own interest, however, was different. Instead of looking for ways to poison large groups, he was fascinated by the idea that chemicals could be used to control a person's mind. In secret prisons across Europe and Asia, prisoners were subjected to attempts at brainwashing. Kinzer cites one study. In 1951, a team of CIA scientists led by Dr. Gottlieb flew to Tokyo. 4 Japanese suspected of working for the Russians were secretly brought to a location where the CIA doctors injected them with a variety of depressants and stimulants. Under relentless questioning, they confessed to working for the Russians. They were taken out into Tokyo Bay, shot, and dumped overboard. In the following years, one drug became central to Gottlieb's work: acid. Originally synthesized in 1938, its hallucinogenic properties first became apparent to scientists in the 40s. Gottlieb was convinced that LSD could be used to manipulate individuals, to make captured spies confess their secrets, and even to rewrite their personalities. Gottlieb was not alone in thinking this. During the war in Korea, United States establishment circles were shocked by instances of U.S. soldiers going over to the North Korean side and denouncing U.S. war crimes. The only possible explanation, United States intelligence concluded, was that the communists had perfected brainwashing techniques. In the 1962 movie, The Manchurian Candidate popularized this idea further with its story of a communist plot and a brainwashed U.S. soldier. Human guinea pigs. As with their fixation on supposed Soviet advances in bacteriological and chemical warfare, the fear of communist brainwashing skills in the United States intelligence circles drove them to break their own laws. The CIA needed human guinea pigs, but Korean prisoners of war and suspected communist spies provided only a limited supply. Gottlieb proved resourceful in finding new victims. Soon after launching the program that would become infamous as MK Ultra, Gottlieb came into contact with Harris Isbell, Director of Research at the Addiction Research Center in Lexington, Kentucky. Officially a hospital for people with drug addictions, this center lay under the joint authority of the Bureau of Prisons and the Public Health Service, and it functioned more like a prison. Most of its inmates were extremely marginalized, powerless African Americans. That made them perfect test subjects. As Kinzer writes, the CIA needed a place to test dangerous and possibly addictive drugs. Isbell had a large number of drug users in no position to complain. From the early 1950s onward, the agency shipped LSD with any number of other potentially dangerous narcotics to Kentucky to be tested on these human guinea pigs. This was only the beginning. Not satisfied with the Kentucky research, MK Ultra branched further out. In the mid-50s, CIA operatives took note of the work of Ewan Cameron, president of the American Psychological Association and the Canadian Psychiatric Association. Cameron drew their attention with experiments in which he enclosed patients in small cells, putting them in a drug-induced coma, and subjected them to endless repetition of recorded phrases. Cameron was looking for techniques that would enable him, as he put, to repattern individuals, changing their attitudes and beliefs. Patients who came to Cameron for help became his unwitting test subjects instead. The CIA funded and protected Cameron, who carried out tests that, according to a review conducted decades later, had no therapeutic validity whatsoever and were even comparable to Nazi medical atrocities. To explain Cameron's actions, there is no need to consider misguided patriotism or Cold War fears as motivations. He was simply a sadist who used a scientific cover to break and traumatize people. By the mid-1950s, the CIA was subsidizing research by numerous leading psychologists and psych pharmacologists. Many of them were not aware of where their funding came from. Research was conducted at respected hospitals and universities, MIT, Stanford, and Johns Hopkins. Often the test subjects did not know what they were going to be subjected to, a clear violation of research ethics. Some experiments were non-coercive, even attractive. One series of experiments involved giving LSD to student volunteers. The volunteers were so fascinated by their psychedelic experiences that doctors and nurses signed up to try it themselves. In an ironic twist of history, the CIA helped popularize the drug that was so important in the 60s counterculture, but Gottlieb was still no closer to his dream of a drug that controlled minds. In New York and San Francisco, he ran operations in which civilians received drugs without their knowledge and were then observed for their reactions. In what was informally called Operation Midnight Climax, Gottlieb worked together with agents from the Federal Bureau of Narcotics to set up Safe House in San Francisco. At Gottlieb's direction, writes Kinzer, they assembled a group of prostitutes whose job it would be to bring their clients to the pad and dose them with LSD while he watched and recorded their reactions. White profited from the covert nature of the operation to satisfy his own urges. Toward the end of his life in 1975, White wrote a letter to Gottlieb thanking him for the opportunities the CIA had granted him. I was a very minor missionary, actually a heretic, but I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun, fun, fun. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest? Pretty good stuff, brother. The man who stared at goats. Despite all this, MK-Ultra never yielded the results Gottlieb hoped for. The CIA began winding down the project in the late 60s and stopped it altogether a few years later. The fact that its existence became common knowledge stems from a brief period in the mid-70s of somewhat increased democratic scrutiny of CIA operations. In 1974, the Times reported on illegal domestic CIA activities. The Congress set up several commissions to investigate allegations, such as the famous inquiry headed by Frank Church. Kinzer describes the tug-of-war between officials who sought to use such investigations as an alibi and the pressure for meaningful probes into illegal activity. In the early 70s, Gottlieb had retired from the CIA. When he was outed as the man behind MK-Ultra a few years later and summoned before the Senate Commission, he brokered a deal that saved him from juridical? Why can't I read this word? Juridical? Prosecution. I've never seen it written that way. Gottlieb quietly lived out the rest of his years raising goats in his rural house in Virginia. He died in 1999. Is this... Yeah, I thought that... I know that I covered this once or twice on my channel. We've spoken about MK-Ultra, and we've spoken about Operation Climax and such, but it's a good thing to hear that some of you all are hearing about it for the first time. There's some weird things that Charles Manson was also a part of some of this kind of shit. They think, I've heard some theories or so forth. Let me catch up on chat here. Yep, Werner Herzog, Nazi scientist and head of NASA. Doc Boggs, you know your stuff. I don't know Kurt Debus. Yeah, I never heard that name before. And I don't know if I heard about that, about the Unabomber. Can you link me an article, Boggs? Yeah, I'm not completely familiar about that one. Okay. Final chapter. Irrational and criminal. In Poisoner-in-Chief, individuals, not larger social forces, take center stage. The result is a chronicle of bizarre criminals and crooks such as Gottlieb and George Hunter White, and of the harm they caused. Parts of the book are surreal. Anecdotes vary from horrifying. In one experiment, mentally handicapped children... Oh, God. Content warning, everybody. Parts of the book are surreal. Anecdotes vary from horrifying. In one experiment, mentally handicapped children were fed cereal laced with uranium and radioactive calcium to merely amusing, such as the time when CIA operatives supposedly implanted a listening device in a cat, but forgot that cats do not listen to an instruction. It walked away during a test in a park. But what enabled people like Gottlieb to do what they did? Kinzer's explanation of Gottlieb's motivation only goes so far. The book shows that years of costly experimentation never brought any results that even pointed to the possibility of Manchurian Candidate-style brainwashing, but instead concluding they were chasing a white rabbit. Gottlieb's apparent untouchable status looks even stranger when considering his supposed excesses. To explain his influence in the CIA, Kinzer describes Gottlieb's involvement in projects that brought him prestige, but Gottlieb's success stories were almost all failures, such as failed attempts to assassinate the Chinese foreign minister Zhou Enlai, Fidel Castro, or the Congolese independence leader Patrice Lumumba. Lumumba was murdered before Gottlieb's plan could be put into effect. Gottlieb's career in destroying lives is a startling example of bureaucratic irrationality. showing how without democratic oversight, secret projects can take a life of their own. Kinzer gives particular credit to CIA Director William Colby for the partial exposure of this madness, but Colby acted in a much wider context shaped by the anti-war movement, Watergate, and revelations such as the Pentagon Papers. There was a widespread distrust of institutions like the CIA and popular pressure for accountability. It is no coincidence that with the decline of these movements in the late 70s, any kind of accountability was once again curtailed. With the War on Terror, the Central Intelligence Agency and other intelligence agencies won unprecedented freedom to operate. More recently, in the era of Trump, we've even seen several attempts to rebrand the CIA as a kind of rational, knowledgeable, and benevolent arm of the United States state. Kinzer's book on Gottlieb and MKUltra serves as a useful reminder of the rotten nature of the imperial spy masters. What's happening with this whole green screen thing today? Okay. One article down. 43 more to go. Donald Trump thought he had a nuclear deal with Putin. Not so fast, says Russia. Trump administration officials want to broaden the New START Accord and warned that the price of a new deal will rise after the election. Joe Biden supports a straight 5-year extension of the deal. Trump had a pre-election plan to show he had gotten something out of his mysteriously friendly relationship with Putin. In the weeks before the election, the two men would announce that they had reached an agreement in principle to extend New START, the last remaining major arms control agreement between the two countries. It expires on the 5th of February, 2 weeks after the next presidential inauguration. Trump long refused to sign off on a clean 5-year extension of the agreement, a step both leaders could take without Senate approval. He described the Obama-era treaty as deeply flawed, the same thing he said about NAFTA and the Iran nuclear accord, because it did not cover all of Russia's nuclear arms or any of China's. But if Putin is really rooting for Trump to be reelected, he's not acting like it. On Tuesday, yesterday, Marshall Billingslea, Mr. Trump's lead negotiator, announced that the two leaders had an agreement in principle and at the highest level of our two governments to extend the treaty. Billingslea described an added gentleman's agreement to cap each country's stockpile of weapons not currently deployed on missiles, submarines, or bombers. Details needed to be worked out, he cautioned, including the tricky work of verifying compliance. It sounded like a promising conclusion for a few hours. Then, the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister, Sergei Ryabkov, shot back that this was a figment of someone's election season imagination. Washington is describing what is desired, not what is real. He said Moscow would not freeze the number of tactical weapons it possesses. With less than 3 weeks to Election Day, it seems no agreement is in the offing, and the Trump administration officials are saying that after the election the price will go up. VP Biden, the Dem nominee who was involved in the negotiation of the original agreement, has indicated he will agree to a straightforward, immediate extension of the accord for 5 years, the maximum allowed under the current terms, and then work to expand its scope. Pompeo said today, "I'm hopeful that the Russians will find a way to agree to an outcome that frankly I think is in their best interest." But Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, joined the Kremlin's dismissal of prospects for an agreement before the election, saying the Trump administration's one-sided announcement of a nuclear limitation deal was an unclean diplomatic maneuver. "I personally don't see such a possibility. My colleagues who work in the interagency format and meet with the American delegation also don't see the possibility." Mr. Putin's position all year has been that the New START agreement, which limits both countries to 1,550 deployed nuclear weapons, should be extended for 5 years. But there are no limits on stockpiled weapons, which are essentially in storage. And that is why fears of a resumed arms race have arisen, as the United States and Russia move to improve their arsenals with new, more sophisticated weapons. Trump pulled out of the 1987 Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, and now Russia has no incentive to negotiate on tactical warheads, which it has preserved and expanded in recent decades while the U.S. abolished most of its arsenal, save for small numbers stored around Europe. Russia has an advantage in tactical weapons. It doesn't make any sense for them to negotiate. China was not a party to either New START or the INF, and Mr. Trump had argued that the treaties need to be updated to account for Beijing's arms buildup. But the Chinese counter they have around 300 nuclear weapons deployed, 1/5 the number of the United States. Thank you. Happy to answer your questions. Well, this would be something. Could you DM me your email so we can try to set up a time for an interview? I wouldn't try to take more than 30 minutes of your time unless you felt more was needed and you had more availability. Thank you kindly. Have a good evening. Could you DM me your email so we can try to set up a time for an interview? I need a question mark. I wouldn't. What was that? Wouldn't take more than 30 minutes of your time unless you felt more was needed and you had more availability. Thank you kindly. Have a good evening. Might have to order a book. Open Democracy, Reinventing Popular Rule for the 21st Century America. Only 14 left in stock. This is an expensive fucking book. God damn. There's got to be a place where it's cheaper. Wait, did it just come out? It must have just come out. Oh my goodness. We'll see if it works out, though. Yeah, yesterday, and I messaged her that I read it already, so whoops. I mean, hey, sometimes you you make a little bit of a tactical error. I kind of dropped the ball on that one, but whatever. I can get the book and I can read it in a day if I have to for an interview. Oof. Expensive book. My goodness. Whatever. Worth it, though. She's a political theorist at Yale, currently in Paris. So, hey. That's a pretty big deal. Followed by Callie Kami, Adam Tooze. I'm familiar with this guy. Oh, okay. Wow. Rohan Gray, Pavlina Cherneva, Peter Coy. Okay. Yeah, good people that she's followed by. We'll see if it pans out. Is it a long book, too? How many pages? Oh, it's only 272 pages. That's really not bad at all. Yeah, that's really not all that bad at all. Might have to learn French. Je regrette, mademoiselle, l'un d'amour, mon français n'était pas bon. What's thank you? Merci beaucoup pour what's conducting. Or speech even. I don't even remember speech or converse or conduct. Uh, hello, your environment. Okay, moving forward. Houthi rebels free two American hostages, Sandra Lowley and Michael Gidada, were freed in an agreement with the United States and Oman that allowed 200 Houthi fighters to return to war-ravaged Yemen. Good, it's a shorter article. Yeah, let's hope it works out. Yesterday, everybody, I sent oh, got a new follower on Twitter. Gonna have to check who that is. I sent yesterday 50 messages to people that I follow on Twitter to see if anybody wanted to come on the show. Where are they? Here they are. I just sent gobs and gobs and gobs of messages to people being like, hey, do you want to come on to the program at some point? So, even if 2 out of the 50 eventually end up panning out, it's a start. Oh, shit, son. All right. Got followed by Swank Economics Team. Previous life as a financial journalist, BBC reporter, NBC Econ editor, CNBC London bureau chief. Followed by 30 people that I follow. That's what we're trying to do. Claudia Somm, great work. Torres, great reporter. Steve Leisman, wow. CNBC senior, I know him. Econ editor. Followed by a Fed Reserve reporter. Okay. Nice job. Nice. This is good. This is very good. Okay. Back to the Houthi rebel story. 2 Americans held hostage by Iran-backed Houthi fighters in Yemen were released on Wednesday in a deal brokered by the Trump administration and the government of Oman. Sandra Lowley, an aid worker who had been held in the war-ravaged country for 16 months, and Mikhail Gidada, a businessman who had also been held for a lengthy period of time. They were released as part of an agreement under which 240 Houthis in Oman, many of them former armed combatants originally captured by Saudi Arabia, were allowed to return to Yemen. Some of them were former armed combatants. Houthi leaders also released the remains of a third American, Bilal Fatin, a Yemeni dual national who died of natural causes while in captivity. Did Oman just go into the new deal with no, it was the UAE and who who else went into the new deal with Israel? United Arab Emirates, and was it Bahrain? It wasn't Qatar, was it? UAE, Israel, Bahrain? Is that who's in it? Yeah, okay. Yeah, Bahrain. What I think is you need to get a little bit more mature. Person who just asked me a question. You should reconsider what your Twitch handle is. And also, when you go into somebody's channel for the first time ever, it's probably not best to ask them a question that's not within context of what's currently being discussed, because it's just going to continue to make bad impressions for you for the rest of the communities that you try to become a part of. The Houthis were flown home through Saudi Arabian airspace in conciliatory gesture from the Saudi kingdom, given that Saudi Arabia had been waging a military campaign against the Houthis. They got back into Sana'a, which is the Houthi-held city in Yemen. Thank you, John McCain. Yeah, it was Bahrain. Okay. How do I psychologically recover after reading bad news? This is actually a very valid question. Can I return to it in just a moment? I want to say something to the other person who joined in. Yeah, we are, but did it? It's that's just not like what I'm like discussing at the moment right now. I kind of have. Do you see all these tabs up there? These are the things that I kind of have like on my agenda for the moment. Um, and like I said, it's just you came into my channel. I don't know who you are, and yeah, I didn't really want to be sidetracked from it. Um, I will answer your question in a while if you'd still like me to. But do you kind of see what I'm saying? Where like you shouldn't just go into like somebody's house and immediately ask them for something. It's kind of like go in, chill for a little bit, find out what like the style of the conversation is like, and then proceed forward. Um, how do I psychologically recover from reading the bad news? Honestly, it's pretty tough. The reason that I don't have a fixed streaming schedule is because this stuff really does get to me. I can't there are mornings where it's kind of tough to get up because like I do read a lot of more difficult stories, but overall, the very cathartic part about being able to stream it and kind of like sharing the burden with other people is I don't just have to carry it by myself. So it's kind of I kind of stream for like a somewhat selfish reason that I can go through some of this information and then have other people kind of like bear the weight of it as a group rather than just like bear the weight of it individually. But no, it is hard on my mental health. I had to go to the hospital in May. My blood pressure was way up. My heart was like beating out of my chest, and I went to the emergency room, kind of just having like it all just like built up. Since then, however, I've developed a little bit more of a calm. I've kind of realized that I cannot fix many, if any, problems, and the best thing that I can do is try to bring like awareness to the causes that we cover on the channel. Um, but no, it is difficult. But I think that this is something that a lot of journalists deal with. I'm reading text on a paper. I'm not a war reporter. I'm not in impoverished areas or so forth. So I kind of just have to stay in perspective that I'm just reading some things, um, and a lot of the other people that I'm reading about are really the ones that are dealing with the difficult times. But yeah, it's something that hurts. I only plan on doing this kind of work for about 10 or 15 years. I'm about a year and a half into it right now. And then I just want to become a hermit, on a mountainside, grow some cannabis, distill some whiskey, keep doing this or keep doing that, maybe write some books or so forth. But I happen to be in a point of my life where this seems to be, something that I can do and try to contribute. Um, Global heating kills half the corals on the Great Barrier Reef. New research finds corals on vast Australian reef increasingly unable to recover from heat caused bleaching. Half have died over the past 25 years. I 100% think that we should be taking global warming more seriously. I got into politics because of environmentalism. I think that we need to walk the very fine line of talking about anti-materialism. Trying to reduce consumption of some of the more quote unquote developed nations of the world. I think that we're the ones who really need to evaluate our consumer habits. In addition, I mean, the individual is not going to be able to change it. So like the forces and the pressure needs to be put on the system as a whole. Capitalism is very good at producing something and producing demand for it. So it's a really difficult conversation to actually talk about solutions and so forth. I did just have a nuclear engineer on, PhD in nuclear engineering. I'm planning on having 12013 come on to talk about different renewables and so forth. We have an article coming up later on here about how offshore wind is going to be very important. There's no, there is no one. Oh, these people. Sorry, just a moment. There is no one size fits all answer for your question. 420. It's multifaceted. It's very complicated. It involves system change, individual change, culture change, mentality change. Um, I do my best to kind of like live by example. I don't really consume much. I've eliminated beef and seafood from my diet. I'm down to just eating chicken at the moment right now. So trying to, kind of like lead by example. Yeah, Doc Boggs, you're right. Like our entire society is built on GDP growth and production growth and more consumption and more debt accumulation and more and more and more. So, oh, nice substance, Jane. Hell yeah. Electric bikes? I guess I don't. I mean, I'm lucky that I can just ride a regular bicycle. Um, I don't know how harmful it is eating shrimp. The first thing that I eliminated out of my diet was seafood because of overfishing. Overfishing to me seems to be even more damaging than the beef industry. Now, I don't have the data to prove myself, but I have a fear that if we overfish certain parts of the ocean, this could lead to food chain collapse, and that's going to lead to bigger problems than we can even really like contemplate. This kind of happened with the cod industry in the United States in the northeastern part, off of New Hampshire, Maine, this type of area. That's why we had to put quotas on our cod fishing. There's some really bad things happening with shark populations, with whale populations, with tuna populations. So that was the biggest reason why I cut out seafood first. Then I cut out beef, and now I'm down to chicken. Uh, and mostly the chicken that I'm eating right now is just stuff that I had bought, canned chicken and so forth. I also plan on hunting. I live in Pennsylvania. Deer are plentiful. I can if I can get a deer this fall, that can give me like 60 pounds of venison, maybe 50 pounds of venison. That can last a pretty long time. I'm sorry though that I'm not gonna have a perfect answer for you. I don't entirely agree with that, Doc. Because demand for fish continues to grow and demand for seafood continues to grow. It's kind of like a middle class or an upper middle class delicacy. So while the fishermen maybe are, they still gotta like make money. So I don't. I don't know if I completely agree with that. Yeah, that is one part of it. I mean, I don't really talk too much shit on China, but it does seem they sent some fishing fleets down to the Galapagos, and the Japanese fishing industry isn't exactly the most tightly regulated. Um, and also, I mean, I think Trump rolled back the cod regulations, didn't he? Trump removes cod regulations. I don't give a shit. Boston Globe. Trump is removing protections on the Northeast Canyons and Seamounts, a nearly 5,000 square mile area off the Cape Cod that's been closed to commercial fishing. So he seems to be, removing some of the quotas and so forth. Oh, wow. Okay, Boggs. And 420, are you still out there? If you tell me that you're still out there, I will answer your question. Okay, so what do I think about Joe Biden? I'm only going to say like one little quick thing about him. I'm voting for the Democratic Party in the upcoming election because they at least mention climate change is real, not the climate always changes. There are a lot of things that I don't like about Joe. There are a few things that I do like about him. However, it appears to me that within the United States, in the two parties, one is more vehemently anti science, anti climate change than the other. And I intend to support the party who at least like brings climate awareness to the table. And that's really going to be about the extent of the Biden talk. I live in a swing state. Um, yeah, I live in a swing state, so not something I can do. Unrelated things, aka moving train media. I mean, you can do it. I don't let me tell you who to vote for. I'm just only telling you who I'm supporting. For sure, James. Yep, for sure. Medicare for all, Green New Deal, decriminalization of cannabis. You know, this was one thing that Brianna Joy Gray brought up in the Bad Faith podcast with Virgil Texas and Noam Chomsky. Why is it that there are, or is, broad appeal for a multitude of different programs amongst the general populace of the United States, yet it doesn't get anywhere within our systems? Have to see a more intellectual debate to make my hard decision. Well, I'm just gonna show you where my thoughts are. No, actually, never mind. It's not important. Oh, okay. Back-to-back mass bleaching events in 2016 and 2017 prompted the government to downgrade the long-term outlook for the world's largest living organism to very poor. 420, did you know that there's a toxin in a majority of sunscreens that we wear that is also heavily contributing to the damage to the coral reefs? Uh, which chemical in sunscreen kills coral? Oxybenzone, one of the key ingredients in most chemical sunscreen, a synthetic molecule known to be toxic to corals, algae, sea urchins, fish, and mammals. I think did Hawaii bans oxy? Did they ban oxybenzone? Okay, yeah, so they are working towards it. Beginning January 1st, 2021, Hawaii will ban the sale, offer of sale, or distribution of any sunscreens containing oxybenzone or octinoxate without a prescription from a licensed healthcare provider. So we should be shifting over to charcoal sunscreens. Um, this seems to be a much better way. That's not what I want. Charcoal sunscreen for skin. This seems to be what we should be moving towards. The charcoal based ones, I think. Or I'll have to look into it again. They are growing corals in labs. Yeah, it's actually going okay. Corals grown in labs. It's going okay. We've covered this one like once or twice before. They do them on these little pieces, and then they go out and they install them. Which, like, this is an incredible jobs opportunity. You know, here's a perfect job program. I mean, you could probably have like 10,000 people doing something like this. Um, but yeah, they are trying to work on different things like this, and then they go out and they graft them on in the hopes. And also, this gets into a little bit of a weird territory where they're genetically engineering them. I think they're kind of trying to modify their ability to live in warmer temperatures. So I think corals grown in labs, GMO for warmer temperature. I think they're kind of trying to do this. I don't exactly know how I feel. I don't really like CRISPRing Mother Nature. But I mean, I get why they're trying to do this. I'm not smart enough to know exactly what they're working on. Here's the article for you all. Well, they canceled the debate for tomorrow, but I think they're supposed to have one on the 22nd. You have to be careful about quote unquote just planting trees. It's important to diversify. You can't just Johnny Appleseed a place. You kind of have to do some better work with it. But yeah, there is some value into you also said other plants. Yeah, there's value in that too. I got that Bare Republic sunscreen, oxybenzone free. Fuck yeah, you did, Substance Jane. Hell yeah. If you are a new viewer to the channel, this is where I would kindly ask you to click that follow button. I think we do a good job as a community. I'm not the only person that does this broadcast. My community does a lot of work for me too. They keep me on my P's and Q's. So if you like what you've seen so far, go ahead and drop a follow. Here's some debate over adding GM to wild species. Oh, well, yeah, I mean, this whole mosquito thing, aren't they trying to, or change the tsetse fly so it can't carry malaria or something? I don't like this one. I, I really don't like trying to GMO mosquitoes. Um, I may accept GMOing the coral because, I don't really see much of a way to fix it otherwise. The mosquito thing, I wouldn't really support as much, but the coral one I could probably be on board for. Thank you for the follow. 420. I don't like the words that you put together in your name. So I'm going to have to keep just calling you 420 because it's like, why the fuck did you use those two words together? Doesn't make any sense to me. Seems tasteless. Yeah, but can you see how some people could construe it as you're calling people who were the first word something now? It's just like, hmm, not the best, not the best way to put them together. Good thing for you, however, you can change your Twitch name every 30 days. China accuses the United States of stirring up confrontation in Asia Pacific. So what else do we have coming up here? We have White House arms sales to Taiwan, COVID rising around the world, a water war, cross-border fight over water between Mexico and the United States. Israel and Lebanon begin talks on a sea border with the United States as the mediator. Some more China news. Potential sanctions on Putin officials because of the Navalny poisoning. Google employees trying to speak up but not about antitrust. and tariffs on the United States. What do you think I would have to do for you to change your Twitch name? China accuses the United States of stirring up confrontation in Asia Pacific. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi calls Washington's plan for an Indo-Pacific alliance a security risk, even as Beijing flexes its own military might. Issued a statement on Tuesday saying the United States is stirring up a confrontation, declaring it a security risk, following their meeting with the Malaysian counterpart Hishamuddin Hussein, during which he also highlighted China's leadership in fighting the coronavirus pandemic and urged the associated ASEAN network to prevent external disruptions. What it pursues is to trumpet the old-fashioned Cold War mentality, speaking about the United States, and to stir up confrontation among different groups and blocs, and to start a geopolitical competition. I asked you a question first. You answer mine, and I'll consider answering yours. In our view, the region should be determined by the people in the region. For East Asian countries, we have the right to achieve our own stability. We also have the right to pursue independent foreign policy. The U.S. sees the emerging Quad grouping with Japan, India, and Australia as a platform to strengthen its position with regional allies toward China. And we're going to be going into the weapon sales to Taiwan just now. Well, you also have a 10-minute cooldown here. White House moving forward on arms sales to Taiwan. Deal covers the sale of truck-based rocket launchers, long-range air-to-ground missiles, and external sensor pods for F-16 jets. The White House is moving ahead. No, I timed them out for 10 minutes. Or them out, sorry. Timed them out. The White House is moving ahead with 3 sales of advanced weaponry to Taiwan and has sent notification of the deals to Congress for approval, 5 sources familiar with the situation said. 3 sales of advanced weaponry. What are they selling? Sophisticated aerial drones, land-based Harpoon anti-ship missiles, and underwater mines to deter amphibious landings. They are expected soon. The confirmed sale of SLAM-ER, a long-range standoff strike weapon, would represent a step up from the past arms sales to Taiwan, which had been defensive in emphasis. The only thing that the United States exports anymore, weapons. COVID-19 cases are rising everywhere. I think it was 54,000 in the United States today, and huge spikes in Europe as well. France is declaring a state of emergency with a 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. COVID curfew. Russia had their largest daily increase today. Ooh. There it is. 54,000 new cases today, up 21% over the 14-day change. Damn. That's not what you want to see. Hello, Revolt Rise. My friend who's a nurse in Boston said it looks worse now than she's ever seen it. Really? Damn. I don't do a lot of COVID news coverage, so I'm just gonna push forward to this. Seems to be a pretty well written article here. So let's check this one out. Actually, you know what? Let's pop back over to Jacobin. Which Jacobin article would you like to go through? We can do one about the climate movement. We can do worker abuse at a logistics company, offshore wind energy. Not, I know, YES. I know you're going to dig this one. Oil workers haven't heard of the just transition, but they want to save the planet. About the Jerusalem music video. Privatized banking in Mexico. Israel's peace process. And the hundreds of thousands of stranded maritime workers are the invisible victims of the pandemic. We can do any one of these. Offshore wind is great where we can build it. South Dakota and Oklahoma are out of ICU beds, says Greenman 137. Do you have any link for that? I'm not doubting you. I would just want to see a link. Let's check out offshore wind. Netherlands is going to celebrate the completion of Borcel 1 and 2 offshore wind farms located 22 kilometers off the coast of the Dutch province of Zeeland. Oh, what? Netherlands is taking down another nuclear facility. These are bad reasons to be against nuclear. That's alright, I'm going to go through it. Oh, your environment, Seattle. Good idea to capitalize your name. Makes it a lot easier to read. North Dakota is not only facing a surge in coronavirus, but also dwindling resources. Wow. Damn, thank you. Alright, let's go through this whole... This is a long article. I'm not going to read it word for word. I might read part of it by myself here, but... No, it's in South Dakota. Sturgis is in South Dakota. Rather than reciting the fossil fuel industry's propaganda about the intermittency of renewables, it's not... It's not exactly propaganda. There is some validity to this. God damn, I can chew bubblegum and walk at the same time. Um, William Westgard Cruz. Can you? I can. I could chew bubblegum and do this thing, right? And I could walk. You know, like, we can do these things. We can do these things at the same time. Thank you, Green Man. There's some cool designs out there for high pressure mass transfer storage systems that fit inside the stalk of the windmill. Interesting. Who actually gives a fuck about the cost of nuclear? Oh my god, I can't believe that they're actually talking about like dollars when like, oh my goodness. Hmm. Man, this person really hates nuclear. Meanwhile, the nuclear industry is in complete shambles, gobbling up 9 billion to move dirt around. Well, then just get it fucking done. Oh my god. Your environment, Seattle. This article has to be pissing you off for your activism. I'm gonna have to read through this one again. Write a counter article for Jacobin. Yeah, I have to actually let me respond to 1213. They messaged me the other day. I need to respond to it. We're gonna put this one in the back pocket for later. No DMs yet. Hopefully that works out. You know, it's good though to have different positions and different opinions. I kind of would like to write for Jacobin sometime. I really need to learn how to write. I'm not, I'm a live streamer. I'm not a writer. I don't take notes ever. I don't write ever, so I need to teach myself how to write, everybody. It's going to take me time. Good evening, all of you wonderful people out there. Thank you all for the support. Nuclear energy. Oh, you watched this one? Okay, I'll watch this. Yeah, I'll definitely check this one out. Thank you. There's going to be a good debate hosted by the Philadelphia DSA on... Where is it here? Goddamn, Mindy. You tweet a fucking lot. Jesus. Here. I'm really looking forward to this. Marxism and Politics lecture series, Universal Basic Income versus a Federal Jobs Guarantee debate. It's going to be between Matt Bruenig, the writer and husband of Elizabeth Bruenig of the People's Policy Project, and Mark Paul of the Roosevelt Institute on UBI versus Federal Jobs Guarantee. So I will be showing this live on the stream. We'll be watching this one together. I am in favor of one of these. I could probably be convinced of the other but this is what I want. I'm a federal jobs guarantee guy. I was sold on it by multiple people, including Pavlina Cherneva. You know my stances on why not both, because I think a UBI just continues the unmitigated consumption problems. I'm not entirely sold that that's the best route to go. But maybe this debate will change my mind. Maybe the debate will change my mind. By the way, I'm hosting a new show, everybody. If anybody wants to be a part of the show, you might be able to be one. Thinking of starting a show each Saturday morning a.m., smaller streamer Saturday. I'd probably let up to 5 people on at a time to talk about their channels, their politics, their projects, and content, and keep it going for a good few hours. I don't really want to have more than 4 or 5 people on at a time, so it's not too difficult to get some words in. Definitely interested in a few one-on-one hangs. So, if anybody wants to do this, it's going to be Saturday morning, beginning at, well, it's going to start early, though, your environment. It's going to begin at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But it's going to go for a while, so maybe it'll go by the time, like, maybe when you wake up later on, you know, we'll still be going live. And don't worry, I will be kicking people off, that way other people can come on. Because I kind of want it to be an opportunity where I don't consider myself a big streamer. Sometimes I get big numbers, sometimes I don't. So that was kind of why I put like smaller, because I think that I would be in the classification of smaller. But it should be good. Yeah, it should be a good time. Okay. This was an important article for me to read. Let me get this one too. You know, this kind of whole argument of just because like money got wasted because of capitalists, let's never look into doing it again. This one actually really pissed me off. Okay. How many more do we have? We have 35 more tabs open. We're starting to make some progress. Oh, okay. Interesting, Michael McAllister. Congratulations on your gifted sub into Bleep Blomp Ben's channel earlier. $27 hooking you up with one. Nice to see. Thank you for coming by and spending some time here. Alright, since we were on the energy train, how about we do this one? Most oil workers haven't heard of the just transition, but they do want to save the planet. While the Green New Deal argues for a just transition for fossil fuel workers, a new study shows few such workers have heard of the term. Workers can play a decisive role in greening the economy, but only if their own concerns and expertise are central to the transition process. And you bring up a good point, Michael. You know, I'm kind of looking for, I think that we need elder care aids. I think that we need pollution cleanup. Oh, yeah, it is about the highest it can go. So I'm fine with expanding the definition here. Well, yeah, I wonder what you would mean by expanding it, because what I'm talking about are actual jobs. So I wonder what you're considering expanding it to be. In the United Kingdom, not a single public body consulted offshore oil and gas workers about their livelihood and the future of the energy industry. It has massive ramifications for the success. Does the Biden plan have any of this specifically? A just transition? I don't think so. 91% of respondents never heard of the term just transition. Yeah, but those are only recommendations. I know that he has like an actual plan. Well, so James, that's up to us to protest the fuck out of Biden in order to get him to cave to some of the demands of the left. You know, I plan to pull the lever and then grab a megaphone and yell at him. As soon as he's confirmed into office, I will begin shouting at Biden every single day with all of my energy. "82% of the industry said they would consider moving to a job outside of the oil and gas industry. More than half would be interested in renewables and offshore wind, with others expressing a preference for work decommissioning oil rigs as well as other low-carbon professions." Okay, yeah, fair. That's cool. Yeah, I'm completely down with that, Michael. Because a lot of what I think needs to be done in the United States is not for profit. I think we need river cleanup. I think that we need forest management. I think that we need elder care work. I think we need more teachers, apprenticeships, and so forth. So I am 100% down with you here. They do a lot of what? Sorry. Oh, shouting at people? Yeah, Sunrise Movement I think is pretty wonderful. I don't have too many critiques. I think they do a good job of bringing awareness to climate issues. If anybody wants to go to my YouTube channel, if you think back a long time ago, I went to New York City to cover this. This is me in the front row taking some video of Greta Thunberg. As well as a couple other people. This one was pretty good.
Because hard for your pops, mom's nephew and niece doing this out of love because war is a beast. I say peace to the poets behind their bars like a convict. People thinking peace is the absence of conflict. It's really the ability to cope with it, to deal with it, to cry with it, to hope with it. We spit for all ages, grad school to third graders, in a mosque, in a church, from baptisms to satyrs. We spit to uplift the gift that God gave us, the power of the word, because we heard it might save us. So we say peace to the poets who propagate peace, and power to the people who march in these streets, and word to the workers who walk in bare feet, and light to the writers who fight to get free. I see me in you, and you in me, in the streets of Cochabamba, taking back El Agua, rocking Sandinista parties when we took Managua, shook my fist in Nueva York, que le do a la guerra, environmentalist to protect la tierra, and I'm a feminist, yo respeto mi madre, soy padre y bebé, struggle of every day, abuelita y hijito, soy la gente que grita, el pueblo unido, el pueblo unido. People united and I will never be divided. I'm the people who riot and I will never be quiet. I'm the ones who rebel for those stuck in a cell. I'm the people who see we are not yet free. Cause I am the people and the people are me. Peace. You should walk in the good way.
Yeah, that was a pretty wonderful, memorable day. Biden plan is all neo-lib incentives for wind, solar, nuclear, ARPA, e-tech. Some mention of helping the coal workers. Coal miners and power plant workers who took on dangerous jobs. Biden will... make sure they get pensions and health benefits that have been promised. Congress should do the right thing and pass legislation now to protect the retirement benefits owed to miners. Yeah, that's really not the best. Invest in coal and power plant communities. That's really not the best either. I just read the whole plan, didn't I? Oh god, this is the entire plan. I'll run through it at some point. Okay, we were... Where? Here. This is a pretty good article. I like that one. Yeah, I'm down with this. Supposedly, Revolt Rise knows Mark Blythe. And, well, that's pretty cool. We're making progress. We're down to 34 tabs. Okay, let's check out this Mexico water crisis. By the way, I'm actually really kind of proud of how the stream is going today. I think that we're doing a good job on our coverage. I'm realizing I am super hungry, and I maybe had too much caffeine in the most recent drink that I had. I'm kind of like freaking out at the moment. There's granola in my cup. Sorry. Farmers in Mexico ambushed soldiers and seized a dam to stop water payments to the United States, in a sign of growing conflict over increasingly scarce resources. La Boquilla Dam was seized from the government by local farmers. The farmers armed themselves with sticks, rocks, and homemade shields, ambushed hundreds of soldiers guarding a dam, and seized control of one of the border region's most important bodies of water. Hell yeah, Mexican workers. The Mexican government was sending their water to Texas, leaving them next to nothing for their thirsty crops. They took over the dam and have refused to allow any of the water to flow to the United States for more than a month. Wow, I haven't heard about this until now. Good for you, farmers. Hell fucking yeah. Federal forces first occupied the dam since in February to ensure water deliveries to the United States continued. Activists in Chihuahua burned government buildings, destroyed cars, and briefly held a group of politicians hostage. For weeks, they've blocked a major railroad used to ferry industrial goods between... Wow. Oh, wow. Well, that was really nice of you to just come and say hello. Good evening to the missus. I hope your... What is tonight? Wednesday? I don't know. Do people have pasta on Wednesdays? You having some pasta with red sauce? Maybe a little bit of meat and veggies on the side? Thank you for coming by. I am doing pretty well. I have 34 more stories to cover. We're talking some Google protests. We're talking some Lebanese peace deals. We're talking some IMF prognostications, some Libya conflict, Zambia potentially going bankrupt, fighting in Afghanistan, Nagorno-Karabakh. We're reading a little bit of Jacobin, talking about climate deals, worker abuse, some music video stuff, Sudan, food inflation, so forth. So it's been a good stream so far. Oftentimes, in order to achieve change, zero she flies. Things happen. I don't want the farmers to end up in that way. Cheeseburger macaroni on the menu tonight. Ooh, nice. Hell yeah, that sounds tasty. That sounds really tasty. But yeah, if you look at the history of social struggle, it does oftentimes end in bloodshed for those that have that have been under the heel. Made a plan learning Mandarin, getting TFL certs, moving to China in 2021. Interesting, Orlando. The government temporarily froze bank accounts belonging to the city where many of the protesters live. And Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador has sent National Guard to protect the Chihuahua Dam. He never saw himself as the type of person who would lead hundreds over a hill to overwhelm a group of soldiers, protecting a cache of automatic weapons. But there he was in a video posted on Facebook, escorting a Mexican general out of the Boquilla Dam on the day he led the takeover. Surprised and heavily outnumbered, the National Guard surrendered. Later that day, one protester was shot and killed by the National Guard. This is a fascinating story. Beautiful place, too. Wow. There was actually a good Bloomberg, was it Bloomberg, Mexico City water? If anybody's looking for an interesting video on the precarity of the water situation in Mexico City, I highly recommend you take a peek at this one. Absolutely terrible, terrible shortage of water inside of the city. Old systems, old pipes, and so forth. But this is a good one to pay attention to. Highly recommend the video. I wonder what the New York Times readers are saying. Not exactly against it. They kind of seem to be saying we have water problems everywhere. Interesting. Should I assume that since it's Bloomberg, that there is a bias ahead of time? Um, I find Bloomberg to be decent. I mean, if we think about who owns it, Michael Bloomberg, he's been an independent, he's been a conservative, he's been a Democrat. Um, I think the paper, how much is Bloomberg newspaper? I think it's $40 a month for the. Okay, so it's $35 a month for the newspaper, which I kind of think means that it's more of like an elite paper for business elites. So I kind of find that it has like a maybe center right business leaning. However, they did just start a new publication, which I have around here somewhere. Is this it? Yeah, this is it. I did get my second edition of Bloomberg Green, which is their quadrennial piece on all things green technology. It's a pretty good like put together on like green energy and so forth. But no, I find Bloomberg to be a little bit center right from my analysis. I also have their Business Week here. But actually, this is interesting. Maybe they're not as center right as they used to be. All right, you ready to see the check this out. You ready? Want to go to a restaurant? We need better testing. A sports event or a movie? Better testing. Travel somewhere? Better testing. Go to a wedding, a funeral, a party? Better testing. Send your kids back to school? Better testing. And this came out October 5th. That's a pretty big political statement on the cover. But I like Bloomberg. I read Critical Thinking Veteran. Every day I try to at least check some of Jacobin, Bloomberg, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Al Jazeera, Reuters, AP. So these are the places that I usually get my news from. I like Bloomberg for business news, for econ news, and so forth. I don't watch Pac-Man. Oh, nice. Have a good time with football. I really liked this article. TLDR of the video CTV before you go is there's a business that's developed a water capture system to help capture some of the rainfall in order to give people drinking water. Okay, Orb Lady. Oh, okay. Um, I don't do that just because I just haven't done that. I don't have too many subscriptions anymore. I sub to the Times, to the Journal, to Bloomberg, to Jacobin. Um, I really appreciate it. I'll talk to you about this offline sometime. Oh yeah, okay. I know the show Vikings. I think I'm in season 4 or something. Okay. Israel and Lebanon begin talks on the sea border with the United States as a mediator. I wonder. Oh, what? Oh, no, I didn't. It wasn't a question. The TLDR of that video is there's an entity or a business that developed a rainfall capture system that people can kind of like install on their roofs in Mexico City because they have a ton of rainfall. But the problem is like it gets down into the city and like it doesn't get like used all that efficiently. So they're rolling out like this initiative and this program across Mexico City to help people develop water capture systems. That way, they can save money on buying bottled water. That's all. Like that Bloomberg video is really about. Yeah, I don't exactly have the disposable income for it, but this is where we are. So yeah, thank you, Orb Lady. How you doing? So how do we think this is going to go? I mean, okay, like the United States is going to side with Israel on most of this, especially because Lebanon is absolutely decimated at the moment right now. But teams from neighboring Middle Eastern countries are negotiating over their disputed frontier in the gas-rich Mediterranean Sea. Lebanon and Israel kicked off their first negotiations in 30 years on non-security issues, aiming to end a long-running dispute over the maritime border in the gas-rich Mediterranean Sea. Ooh, Cheetos. That sounds good. I like them, James. I don't know how much. Yeah, I think they do a great job. Um, I like some of their stunts and so forth. I think that it brings awareness. I think that they do great work. I'm not familiar with every single action that they've taken, and there's probably some that I'm technically not allowed to like support or so forth. But at least on this platform. But no, they do a good job bringing awareness. I mean, the United States is just going to back Israel a bunch on this one, and Lebanon is going to get reamed on it. Let me find Al Jazeera, Lebanon, Israel, Maritime. They had a good map. Do you have the map here? Yeah, okay. Look at this map. Okay. Who is who's getting the better end of the stick here? All right. Right here is the border. Yeah? So how Israel is like claiming all of this, I don't exactly get it. They're trying. I mean, I would say that this, if you drew a line, comes. Like this line actually seems to make sense to me. It seems to just go along with that border. So, I mean, I'm on the side of Lebanon in this one. Yeah, manifest destiny for sure. I'll need to keep this one bookmarked for the future. Okay, we are down. Wait, I thought that we were. Did I add some in the back end? I did. Whoops. 32 more tabs to go. And we're almost out of the New York Times. All right, let's check out this one. IMF warns of a rich-poor recovery gap between and within countries. The IMF is forecasting a less severe global recession, but warns of a growing recovery gap between rich and poor within countries and between wealthy and poor nations. Well, you're wrong about this part, too. That part you're wrong about. It is going to be severe. But you're right about how there's going to be a chasm developing. Why do these fucking economists keep thinking that the recovery is going to be fine? Literally every nation, not every nation, a lot of nations around the world have coronavirus cases surging at the moment right now. And it's going to take up to 2 years to distribute a vaccine across the entire planet in a best case scenario. $90 million people expected to fall into extreme poverty this year. I don't fucking get these economists. So because we had that one, let's go over to Zambia. Where's the article about Zambia here? Here. Will Zambia be the first African nation to default? Zambia inched closer to defaulting on its dollar bonds in a global test case for nations struggling to service debts. Holders of Zambia's 3 billion of euro bonds will vote next week on the country's request for a 6-month interest payment holiday. A core group of creditors already rejected the proposal. At heart of the matter is how commercial creditors are treated in a planned restructure. Eurobond holders want the government to sign up for an economic program with the IMF before tackling their commercial debt. But Zambia's debt levels are significantly above the Washington-based lenders' thresholds, and a general election in 10 months makes deep spending cuts less likely. There are also questions about transparency around borrowing from China, which accounts for roughly a third of the nation's $12 billion of external debt. Zambia is between a rock and a hard place, with the IMF demanding transparency on Chinese loans and the political economy going into the elections next year that makes them reluctant to pull back from infrastructure projects mostly Chinese-backed. I don't use the L word too often, but I like you a lot too, Orb Lady. The only foreign currency debt that Zambia will continue to pay on time is to multilateral agencies and debt for a few priority projects. The country is already $485 million in arrears on foreign debt, including $183 million to bilateral lenders and $256 million on commercial loans. Did I use bellwether the right way? Maybe I didn't. What did I even mean to say there? Weather vane? No, I'm just going to use a different word. This could be... the first example Ah, shit. Cool. All right. New York Times, Jacobin, or Al Jazeera? Which news source do we click next? We have 3 left from the New York Times, about 10 left from Al Jazeera, and like 6 or 7 from Jacobin. Bellwether. I did use it the right way. One that serves as a leader or a leading indicator. Oh, okay. I just didn't spell it the right way. Can I open more? Oh, hello. Oh, you have a hard name to say. Concaness? Or do people call them conch shells? Conch or conch? Conch and... Oh, Jesus. And it's going to sound like I'm saying a C-O-C-K word all the time when I'm trying to say that. Oh, Jesus. I'm going to call you 33. I would love to sit down with Trump and read these articles to him to see if he says we're looking at that very strongly for each topic, right? Yeah, right. Oh, consciousness. Ah, you figured it out. You did figure it out. Wow. Okay. Yeah, nice job. Yeah, I think you. I see what they're doing there. Okay. Well, since nobody answered, let's hit up this Reuters one real quick. I'm not even sure if there's much of a story here, but I'm just interested on international shipping and consumerism and so forth. So the story is ships wait to unload at the port of Los Angeles as imports boom. Incoming cargo to the port of LA is surging as businesses restock depleted inventories and retailers prepare for an early holiday season. How is it going to be an early holiday season? Who the fuck has money to buy gifts this year? Workers unloaded 17% more imports than the year earlier. Wow. I wonder if they're going to go on strike again. I know some dock workers on the West Coast went on strike before. Man, the dock workers and the truckers have so much power. If dock workers and truckers strike in the United States, GG. You know, they've got so much power in the United States. And I know they were doing some striking before. All right, let's hit up the Times for some Russian poisoning. Great stream so far, everybody. If there's anybody who likes it, we are 2 hours into the broadcast. I stream pretty much every day of the week, once or twice a day. I'm unaffiliated with Twitch. I don't want them to take any money from me, so the only way to support me at the moment is through PayPal. Well, I also have a Patreon if you actually kind of want to subscribe. You don't get anything for it. Soon I'm going to be opening up to accepting cryptocurrency. But yeah, if you want to drop any little dono into this thing, that's cool. If not, just keep hanging out. I really appreciate all the support. The European Union is preparing sanctions on Putin allies over Navalny's poisoning. 6 high-ranking officials who are believed to be involved in the attack on the opposition leader Alexei Navalny face asset freezes and bans on travel to the bloc. They're trying to work on individuals that had direct knowledge of the poisoning or were involved in the planning. The head of Russia's domestic spy agency, the first deputy chief of staff, and the head of the president's administration on domestic policy directorate. Wow. Germany and France compiled the list and presented the names along with a 500-page packet of evidence. Jeez. Same substance used on Sergei Skripal in Salisbury, England. They think he got his tea poisoned. Alright, this article's not as long as I thought it would be. Let's hit up Jacobin. Which one do we want to do? The climate movement, worker abuse, a music video that we have to watch, privatized banking, Israel peace deal, or maritime stranded workers. Ye old polonium tea. Thanks for lurking in the channel as much as you do, Alex. I appreciate it. Climate movement? Okay. The climate movement must disrupt the normal routines of fossil capital. Despite all the mounting evidence of climate catastrophe, fossil fuel companies are still planning to carry on business as usual. They must be ready to use tactics that disrupt the normal routines of fossil capital and prompt states to take meaningful action. This extract is taken from the Andreas Malm's book, How to Something a Pipeline, Learning to Fight in a World on Fire. Monka TOS. I gotta be careful on this one. Oh, so this is a long excerpt. Oh boy. Oh jeez. The only shitty part about Jacobin, you have to read every word. When I read a New York Times article or an Al-Jazeera article, I can skip like 80% of what they read. And I can just take out like what's needed. But, you know, reading a Jacobin article, you got to read every word because they're actually all important. Yeah, Jacobin is well written. It takes a long time to consume their pieces. Yeah, and I'm not even saying that like Al Jazeera isn't well written, but like, you know, let's take this one. You know, a lot of times, well, they're shorter and you can kind of just like skip through some of the parts. But all right, here we go. La 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 la. Oh, geez, my voice is dying. All right, I'm gonna stretch, and then we're gonna read it. All three cycles of climate protest in the 21st century have spun out of an insight, more and more widely shared. The ruling classes really will not be talked into action. They are not amenable to persuasion. The louder the sirens wail, the more material they rush to the fire, and so a change in direction will have to be forced upon them. The movement must learn to disrupt business as usual. To this end, it has developed an impressive repertoire. Blockades, occupations, sit-ins, divestment, school strikes, the shutdown of city centers, the signal tactic of the climate camp. Later cycles have built on and learned from prior ones. Toward the end of the second, much inspired by the North American struggles against pipelines, the German movement reinvented the climate camp formula and brought it to a higher level of mass defiance. Onde galant, meaning roughly here and no further, was born. Is this Naomi Klein? No, it's Andreas Malm. Here's the book link. Yeah, I could yeah, right, I did pronounce it French. Yeah, but how I don't know how to pronounce it in German. It looks French to me. Ende Gelande? Yeah, Ende Gelande. I guess would be the German. Ende Gelande. Even Al Jazeera is 90% auto-generated content, and you say that because it's just a game of copy pasta? Yeah. Ende Gelande. There you go. We are reading this article, Kobe. At Endagalanda, activists pitch their tents around a central area of circus tents and kitchens. They undergo training in affinity groups, dress up in thin white coveralls, and set out for a brown coal mine. Approaching the target from several directions, in brigade-like columns or fingers, they excel in breaking through police cordons with the sheer mass of their bodies, running past outwitted guards, making their way through water cannons and fences until they reach the open pits. There, they slide down into the dusty craters and climb the diggers, the humongous excavators like a towering, rusty ships slowly eating their way through the earth, or lie down on the railway tracks ferrying coal to the furnaces. Production can be switched off for days. No fuel can be dug up and burned when the activists hold the premises. Arguably constituting the most advanced stage of the climate struggle in Europe, Onda Galenda spanned the cycles and grew year on year. In the summer of 2019, 6,000 people closed the largest point of source of emissions in Germany, backed up by several thousands more in the camp and some 40,000 in a Fridays for Future demonstration. By the time Onda Galenda had forced the issue of brown coal to the top of the agenda and prompted a national commission to set a date for phasing it out, the date eventually announced was 2038. That's another 2 decades of churning out coal. They promised to march on and swell further and spawn more copycats around Europe. In 2019, dozens of climate camps were organized from Poland to Portugal. The learning curve went steadily upward. Thus, the cycles have not returned to square one, but rather formed a cumulative process in a rising loop, like the climate crisis itself. The American and European sections have learned from each other, and the cadres have accumulated a wealth of experiences. These include small wins, a gas pipeline cancelled here, a coal plant scrapped there, as well as some big losses, which however seem to ensure the movement is growth, as the fire drives more people to take the plunge into activism. Strategic pacifism. Well, I mean, isn't the center dying in Germany? No, it's not for no apparent reason. The center has pretty much died. I think people have shifted away from the CDU, and they're either going to the AfD or the SPD or to the Greens. So I think it's because of a collapse of the middle, and I think there's reasons for it. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Strategic pacifism. But so far, the movement has stopped short. CDU is gaining, actually, with Rona. Wow. Merkel is on her way out next year, isn't she? So far, the movement has stopped short of one mode of action: offensive, or for that matter, defensive physical force. Anything that could be classified as violence has been studiously, scrupulously avoided. Nice. Indeed, the commitment to absolute nonviolence appears to have stiffened over the cycles, the internalization of its ethos universal, the discipline remarkable. In late August 2018, 700 activists assembled outside a compound of 7 gray gas cisterns in the Dutch province of Groningen. Home to the largest onshore field of fossil gas in Europe, the area has long been ransacked by serial earthquakes, as the extraction has made the land suddenly compact and subside, damaging homes and buildings, and racking the nerves of the local population. We erected an improvised camp in front of the compound, blocking transportation. The police lined up on a railway track between the gates and us. A ballast of crushed stones held up the rails. As dusk fell, some 300 farmers marched against Shell and Exxon and ended up in the camp, causing the crowd to spill onto the railway track. At which point the police started raining down their batons and shooting pepper spray, someone fainting and being carried away, others screaming in pain. Not a single stone was picked up and thrown. The supply was abundant, which were standing on top of thousands. We could have pelted them. And after such an assault, other types of crowds would have responded in kind. The climate movement would not. The strictures against violence extend to property destruction. In Groningen, the action consensus, every participant had to abide by solemnly pledge that we will not damage machines or infrastructure. A year later, the first Swedish imitation of Onda Galanda took place in Gothenburg, against the construction of a gas terminal. one node in a fresh new infrastructure for fossil fuel combustion rolled out over the continent. A company called Swedegas engineered the terminal and aimed for 8 more on the Swedish coast. Liquefied gas would be imported from across the world and pumped into the country through a network of pipelines to the benefit of a global consortium of investors. And so we went there with our white coveralls to the Gothenburg harbor, 3 fingers, 500 people, the largest civil disobedience action in the modern history of this somnolent nation, and blocked all trucks carrying oil and gas for a day. The action consensus stated that we will behave calmly and carefully. Further, it is not our aim to destroy or damage any infrastructure. We spent the day sitting on the asphalt. Thus far, the movement for averting a spiraling climate outcome has not only been civil, it has been gentle and mild in the extreme. This is impressive. There can be no doubt that this positive posture has served it well. It confers upon the movement a bundle of well-known tactical advantages. If it had deployed black bloc-like tactics from the start, donning sinister masks, smashing windows, burning barricades, fighting it out with the cops, it would have never attracted these numbers. The bar for joining a disruption of business as usual is lowered by certificates of peacefulness. Our being beaten up on the railway tracks in Groningen earned us the sympathy of the Dutch press. No one could smear us as terrorists or the like. Had some of us in Gothenburg started hacking on the fences or using slingshots against the trucks, the scene would have descended into chaos. We would have been kettled and herded off to jail. I could not have brought my 2 kids to the site and played with them for hours. Collective self-discipline, submitting to the guidelines of the operational leadership, conducting an action in accordance with plans is a virtue. Fuck yeah, it is. The determination of the movement to scale up its challenge to business as usual by means of even bigger, bolder mass actions of precisely this kind cannot be called into question. This is the main way forward. Let 100 Andagolanda camps bloom, and fossil capital might find itself under some real pressure. What can be questioned, however, is something else. Will absolute nonviolence be the only way? Forever the sole admissible tactic in the struggle to abolish fossil fuels? Can we be sure that it will suffice against this enemy? Must we tie ourselves to its mast to reach a safer place? The question can be formulated in a different way. Imagine that mass mobilizations of the 3rd cycle become impossible to ignore. Fuck my contact. The ruling classes feel themselves under such heat, perhaps their hearts even melting somewhat at the sight of all these kids with handwritten placards, that their obduracy wanes. New politicians are voted into office, notably from green parties in Europe, who live up to their election promises. The pressure is kept up from below. Moratoriums on fresh fossil fuel infrastructure are instituted. Legislation and planning are put in place for cutting emissions by at least 10% per year. Renewable energy and public transport are scaled up. Plant-based diets are promoted. Blanket bans on fossil fuels prepared. The movement should be given the chance to see the scenario through. But imagine a different scenario. A few years down the road, the kids of the Thunberg generation and the rest of us wake up one morning and realize that business as usual is still going on. Regardless of all the strikes, the science, the pleas, the millions with colorful outfits and banners, not beyond the realm of the thinkable. Imagine the greasy wheels roll fast as ever. What do we do then? Oh, I deleted my Discord, Revolt Rise. If you're looking for my username to send me that DM, here it is. I didn't want to manage a Discord because I didn't think that many people were able to do this part. Right here. I don't like being in charge of it like an offline Discord server or anything like that. Collective self-discipline, submitting to the guidelines of the operational leadership, conducting an action in accordance with plans is a virtue. And Discords usually just like devolve into like arguments and fighting and back and forth and time wasting and everything. So I deleted my Discord. What is going on with my contact? Oh, you're not distracting at all. Don't worry. My channel literally has like no... Well, I mean, there's like a flow to it, but there's no guide or rails that it has to stay on. Widening gap. Meanwhile, in the actually existing capitalist world economy, unfolding in parallel to the billowing climate movement, money has been flowing into the construction of fresh fireplaces. In May 2019, just weeks after the XR spring uprising in London, the International Energy Agency released its annual report on investment trends in the world of energy. Capitalists knew what sources to bank on. 2/3 of capital placed in projects for generating energy in the year 2018 went to oil, gas, and coal. That is, to additional facilities for extracting and combusting such fuels, on top of all that already spanned around the globe, as against less than 1/3 of capital going toward wind and sun. The share of renewables evinced no growth trend. In fact, global investment here edged downward by 1%. Investment in coal, on the other hand, turned upward for the first time since 2012 by 2%. That is, investment in brand new coal supply not only continued but increased, although not as fast as in oil and gas. For the third consecutive year, the amount of money flowing into upstream oil and gas, meaning infrastructure for delivering those fuels from under the ground, grew by 6% year on year. 6% more capital was sunk into fresh drills, wells, rigs. Investment in exploration alone was projected to shoot up by 18% in 2019. The fire reignited itself anew. Nowhere on the horizon of ongoing capital accumulation could a transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy be cited, despite the latter now being consistently cheaper, as noted by the billionaire's rag Forbes. The IEA had tact enough to notice a growing mismatch between current trends and the paths to meeting the goals of maximum 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius centigrade global warming. Put differently, the capitalist world economy operated in fundamental disconnect from the sense and science of a planet on fire, not to speak of all aspirations to cool it down, and the disconnect was widening. Once an investor has constructed a coal-fired power plant or a pipeline in any other such unit, they will not want to dismantle it. Come on, writer. I mean, okay, yes, it's probably going to be a guy that's investing in it, but okay, maybe like 90, but okay, anyway, I digress. Demolition on the morrow of completion would mean pecuniary disaster. It takes a lot of capital to get something like a deep water field to pump up the black gold, and some time must pass before the initial investment pays off. And once profits have come gushing in, the owner will have an abiding interest in keeping the unit at work for as long as possible. I haven't seen it once. How can capitalists go on like this? They still feel that they own the world. Fixed capital of this size is normally subject to risks and sensitive to the anticipated policy context. Given the money involved, it would be imprudent to undertake these investments if swings and alterations in the economy threaten premature devaluation, let alone liquidation. But these capitalists do not see any wrecking balls coming their way. They think they have nothing to fear. Beyond expectations. At the time of COP1, the first United Nations Climate Change Conference in 1995, few would have thought that 2 or 3 decades down the line, the economies of the world would discharge nearly 1 gigaton of carbon per month, with the corporations busily planning for augmented capacity to combust fossil fuels, and the governments presiding over it proudly or passively. The northern zone of permafrost is a subterranean storehouse of carbon frozen for hundreds of thousands of years. When the planet heats up, the soil begins to thaw. Microbes set to work on the organic matter and decompose it, releasing carbon dioxide, but mainly methane, a greenhouse gas with 87 times greater warming effect during the first 2 decades in the atmosphere. Forest fires work the same way. Carbon locked into trees and soil escape when the flames pass through, as they do now more often, for longer periods at higher intensity over vaster territories. The primary fires of fossil fuels igniting secondary fires from Kamchatka to the Congo. Scientists lag behind these positive feedback mechanisms and struggle to capture them in their models. The carbon budgets have yet to fully integrate them, and if they would contract further. Thus, we find ourselves between 2 scissor blades. On the one hand, unbending business as usual, taking emissions ever higher and confounding hopes for mitigation. On the other, delicate ecosystems crashing down, the extraordinary inertia of the capitalist mode of production meeting the reactivity of the earth. This is the temporal predicament in which the climate movement has to devise meaningful strategies. The science is eminently clear. Because so much valuable, irretrievable time has been lost, assets have to be stranded. Investments must be written off too early for capitalist taste. On one estimate, the instant suspension of every project in the pipeline would make 2 degrees centigrade achievable only if accompanied by the decommissioning of 1/5 of all power plants running on fossil fuels. That is already a lot of sunk capital. Now, one reason why climate stabilization appears such a frightfully daunting challenge is that no state seems prepared to even float this idea, because capitalist property has the status of the ultimate sacred realm. Who dares to throw it on the scrap heap? What government is willing to send its forces to ensure the forfeiture of this amount of profit? I'm not going to go too far into it, but I am just going to let you know that this is one of the premier socialist publications in the United States, and this is a book that was written by a socialist, and I'm just going to move on. This is an excerpt out of the book by Andreas Malm, and it's being published in Jacobin. And so there must be someone who breaks the spell. A refinery deprived of electricity, a digger in pieces. The stranding of assets is possible after all. Property does not stand above the earth. There is no technical or natural or divine law that makes it inviolable in this emergency. If states cannot on their own initiative open up the fences, others will have to do it for them, or property will cost us the earth. But just as the suffragettes sought to twist the arm of the state, on their own they could not legislate any voting rights. The aim would be to force states to proclaim the prohibition and begin retiring the stock. At the end of the day, it will be states that ram through the transition, or no one will. However, the states have fully proven that they will not be the prime movers. The question is not if sabotage from a militant wing of the climate movement will solve the crisis on its own, clearly a pipe dream, but if the disruptive commotion necessary for shaking business as usual out of the ruts can come about without it. We must accept that property destruction is violence insofar as it intentionally exerts physical force to inflict injury on a thing owned by someone who does not want it to happen. But in the very same breath, we must insist on it being different in kind from the violence that hits a human or an animal in the face. One cannot treat a car cruelly or make it cry. Okay, well, so Al, we do have to recognize though that a lot of what they're talking about is like sunk cost and for-profit energy. So like it is valid in this term, but I'm just gonna keep going. You all can have this little talk over there. I think it's an actual fascinating article. Martin Luther King endorsed this distinction in his Apologia for the Urban Riots of 1967. Quote, "Violent they certainly were, but the violence, to a startling degree, was focused against property rather than against people. And within the genus of violent acts, this made all the difference. A life is sacred. Property is intended to serve life, and no matter how much we surround it with rights and respect, it has no personal being. Why were the rioters so violent with property then? Because property represents the white power structure, which they were attacking and trying to destroy." Here's a contrast from late 2019. Chilean students reacting to the rise in public transport fares, championing that mode of transportation as free and accessible for all, by organizing mass trespassing through the turnstiles, attacking ticket machines, supermarkets, and company headquarters, and touching off a nationwide uprising against soaring inequalities in the homeland of neoliberalism. Meanwhile, the movement against climate catastrophe, placid and composed. You should read this article. It's an excellent article. I don't know if you can get through the paywall of it, but I'm going to tweet it out. Climate camps, but if the temptation to fetishize one kind of tactic should be resisted, this also applies, of course, to property destruction and other forms of violence. The tactic with the greatest potential for this movement might be something different. It might be the climate camp. Climate camps have a way of building on each other, spreading horizontally, stacking up experiences of how to fight fossil capital on the ground. Unlike the Occupy and similar camps that cropped up in 2011, to which they are, of course, related, Climate camps are planned long in advance, with fixed dates for erection and dismantling. Neither spontaneous nor reactive, they feed into a plotted escalation. We've yet to see the diminishing returns from activist investment. Onda Golanda has continued to draw in larger numbers and outmaneuver the police, but such success can be hard to replicate elsewhere. Fewer than 5 to 10,000 now readily drummed up in the Rhineland. Activists in other parts of Europe have found that a pre-announced camp can give the corporations time to prepare and to move out sufficient fuel and equipment to cushion against the blockade. With the trouble limited, the police may blunt the edge of the action by standing to the side and letting it pass. There's chatter in the movement about combining camps with smaller, secret surprise hits to cause real disruption. Whatever comes out of it, the climate camp is the unrivaled laboratory for learning this fight. All right, Al. Well, I guess like you all are kind of having this talk, but all right, you know what? Just end it right there. It doesn't fucking matter. Next. Just drop that whole thing that like everybody's discussing. Don't get hung up on it. Sorry. This one just got on under my skin. Al sidetracking us. This was an incredible article. I'm actually looking forward to this book. Okay, we're down to 26 tabs. I need to bookmark this one for later. We're down to 25, actually. 25 to go. The Al-Jazeera ones are going to be quick and easy to go through. Google employees are free to speak up except on antitrust. A company operating... There's a Jim Cramer clip about how the kids are ruining the oil industry stock plays. For real? That's pretty cool. Fucking mad money. Jim Cramer. What a guy. What a guy. All right, I'm just giving my brain a quick recharge. And we will get going soon. Okay. Interesting. A company operating in the shadow of government regulators has some very particular rules about what workers can say about it. Red van, be nice. Be nice. Come on now. Google employees are not shy about speaking up. In the last few years, they've openly confronted the company about building a censored search engine in China, the handling of sexual harassment claims, and its work with the Pentagon on AI technology for weapons. but they cannot talk about antitrust. They don't address it in emails. They don't bring it up in big meetings. They're regularly reminded that Google doesn't crush, kill, hurt, or block competition. And if you hope to land an executive job at the internet company, don't bring up the A word in the interview process. As the Justice Department, a coalition of state attorneys general, and a congressional subcommittee have investigated Google for monopoly behavior, there's been little discussion internally about antitrust concerns. Now, as the department prepares to file a lawsuit against the company, the usual forums where Google employees debate anything and everything has been startlingly subdued about what could be an existential threat to it. Yeah, you gotta let me know what's happening. Not allowed to talk about anti-monopoly in multiple places. I gotta show y'all something. A little video clip here. Hello, ready? My name is Brad Wydra. You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/touring news. And in the video that I'm about to play, this is me getting banned in the Amazon Web Services AWS Twitch stream for saying Sherman Antitrust Act.
GraphQL APIs, data processing pipelines, scheduled tasks, all types of stuff. And if you could deploy easily with the open source product, but as soon as you log in, we're going to try and set up like CI/CD. We're going to try and set up alerts. We're going to try and set up metrics, secret storage, all that stuff, so that you don't have to. And that's kind of our vision for serverless development. Like, you shouldn't have to go like cobble together a whole bunch of tools and stuff like that to try and build like a serverless application platform. And we're just going to take the knowledge.
Thank you for viewing this video. You can find the rest of my news reporting at twitch.tv/touring news if you would ever like to. Good old Amazon. What channel was that? Amazon Web Services. It is the AWS official Amazon channel. Fuck you, Jeff. Well, Revolt Rise, if you're still holding on to all of that, then you are doing A-okay. Yeah, you are doing just fine. If those are the prices that you bought in at, I am happy for you. That's awesome. Hell yeah. I'll soon be opening up my digital wallet to accept the link from people if anybody, for some reason, wanted to gift me any. Here's the video for this one. Like, comment, share, subscribe, or whatever. Back to our work. I said this once before, but this is a really good stream so far today. We've gone through a lot of good topics. I'm proud of like how I'm being able to cover them. So thanks all for helping me get through these. We're doing a good job together. I'm going to try to get a job with Google to talk about anti-monopoly. I don't think that you should share those thoughts, but I think that they are excellent. I support them, but I don't want you to leave a paper trail. So, I I very much think that your head is in the right place. But watch out for yourself and be careful. So please don't take it personally that I timed you out. Like that it's not. I just trying to help you out. You're untimed out as well. We're making it. We're gonna get through these. Oh no! It's not. It's not TOS at all. I just meant operational security for you. No. I'm not. I don't give a shit about you typing it that way. I just wanted you to have your OPSEC, like I said. Yeah. It's not. Yeah, I don't care at all about what you said. It's just for you. You should keep those thoughts in your Faraday cage, inside of a Faraday cage in your house. But who doesn't like what you're doing? This one's for you. That is for you. And that looks tasty as fuck, not gonna lie. I actually really I really enjoy a good sea salt. Okay. One more from the Times. Then we have some Al Jazeera and some finish ups on Jacobin. I get to see what you're saying because anytime you type anything, I click it and it shows. So it comes up as message hidden from user, but I can click it in my channel and I can see the message. I just can't see you in other streams. I think you're one of the only people that I have blocked. Europe can impose tariffs on the United States in a long-running aircraft battle. The World Trade Organization gave the European Union permission to tax up to $4 billion of American products annually in return for subsidies given to Boeing. The WTO yesterday gave the EU permission to impose tariffs on $4 billion worth of American products in retaliation for illegal subsidies given to the U.S. plane maker Boeing, a move that could result in levies on American airplanes, agricultural products, and other goods. The decision, which stems from a 16-year fight before the global trade body, follows a parallel case that the United States brought against Europe over subsidies to its largest plane maker, Airbus. Last year, the Trump administration imposed tariffs on European planes, wine, cheese, and other products after the WTO gave the U.S. permission to retaliate on up to $7.5 billion of European exports annually. The tariffs will not go into effect immediately. They need to get a request from somebody. I don't have too big of a heart for Boeing. I mean, you manufacture weapons, you sell planes that have faulty software, you kill people, you buy back your stock, and then you beg for bailouts. I mean, sorry, not really shedding too many tears for Boeing. All right, pushing forward. Oh, actually, we already covered some of this border dispute. Yep, so we did, they're doing interesting. Lebanon's economic collapse explained. I mean, I could mostly do that one too. Okay, Let's push. Let's push. Let's go back to Jacobin. Which one? Worker abuse? Actually, yeah, let's do this video. Jerusalema. A South African house track, Jerusalema has rocketed around the world, becoming a viral sensation, but it's no common pop song. It speaks to a growing desire across Africa to remake and reimagine the world. Let's check it out.
Jerusalema, ikhaya lami, ilondoloze, uhambe nami, zungangishilana. Jerusalema, ikhaya lami, ilondoloze, uhambe nami, zungangishilana. Dawo yami ayikholana, buso wami awukholana, ilondoloze, zuhambe nami. Dawo yami ayikholana, buso wami awukholana, ilondoloze. Dawo yami ayikholana, buso wami awukholana, ilondoloze, zuhambe nami. Dawo yami ayikholana, buso wami awukholana, ilondoloze.
Okay, that was the video. Let's check out what they are writing about it. It's no common pop song. It speaks to the growing desire across Africa to remake and reimagine the world. Short article. Forever condemned as its heart of darkness, the world remains baffled as to how Africa has seemingly avoided the worst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Earlier in the year, as the virus ravaged other parts of the world and prepared to make landfall on the continent, the projections were nothing short of severe. It was widely anticipated that Africa's poor and overcrowded living conditions, the prevalence of other diseases like HIV and tuberculosis, and its lack of well-resourced health systems would make for the deadliest viral path on the globe. All right, so thanks for the bad take. But if you read that article, you would realize that organized climate action has not produced the result. Sorry, Al, I don't entirely agree with what you're saying there. Just because you have an organized movement doesn't mean it's going to succeed either. I'm just gonna keep doing my work. I mean, whatever. Cool. Going well, Marty. Thanks. How are you doing? Despite their touch of catastrophism, these predictions were not unreasonable given the evidence of despair elsewhere. What is strange in the sense of perverse disappointment that this hasn't been the case. Stranger still, at the height of doom and gloom, little was done by way of international support to prevent the expected worse outcomes. On the flip side, the world is celebrating the lightness of this continent, albeit in the most cliched way, through its products of song and dance. Since the middle of this year, the gospel-inspired South African track House Jerusalema by DJ and producer Master KG has enraptured a global audience. What made it especially take off was its evolution into the Jerusalema Dance Challenge, prompted by a group of Angolan friends recording themselves with plates of food, performing a variation of the line dance to the song. Following that, the similar clips of people dancing to the song have been shared from all over. Groups of ordinary people, nuns, priests, healthcare and other essential workers, police and soldiers, fuel attendants, you name it. Per the African Union, Jerusalema is a song that has transcended its national boundaries and the continent and has people all across the world dancing to its vibrant rhythm. The South African government made sure to co-opt the dance challenge, transforming what was mostly a spontaneous and uncoordinated phenomenon to a state-sponsored feel-good narrative. As President Cyril Ramaphosa announced South Africa's move to its lowest level of COVID-19 lockdown, he urged all South Africans to participate in the dance challenge as part of Heritage Day celebrations that happen in late September. The holiday itself has been a curious history. It replaced Shaka Day and is most commonly now an excuse to barbecue. Suddenly, a country that had been a powder keg of disaffection, traumatized at the injustices and suffering endured during lockdown, yet divided on who was to blame, became united in cheerful performance, as it seemed that at last things were back to normal. And for South Africans, normal means being able to repress the fact of normal being the problem. It means comfortably moving from being outraged about police brutality in June to applaud their renditions of the Jerusalem dance in September. Hello, Monty. Perhaps Jerusalem is different, in that the hopefulness it expresses is not simply about a return to normal, but about a desire to go beyond it. The lyrics themselves, translated from isiZulu, include the lines, "Jerusalem is my home, save me, take me with you, my place is not here, my kingdom is not here." Yet the actually existing city of Jerusalem, which means city of peace, and is claimed by all of the Abrahamic faiths, yet controlled by Israel, is anything but one. There is a gap between the religious imagery invoked by the song and the state of religiously motivated practice today, which makes the fact that Master KG himself isn't particularly religious more telling of how the song speaks to a deeper yearning in the human condition, one beneath religious sentiment. And when Zionists, not the South African version of African-inspired Christianity, but supporters of Israel, at one point tried to appropriate the message of the song as endorsing support for Israel, Palestine solidarity activists worked with Palestinian youth in Jerusalem and South Africa youth in Durban to produce 2 videos, which raised the profile of the African-Palestinian community and solidarity between South Africa and Palestine. Young Palestinian activists included Jana Jihad and Ahed Tamimi sent video messages inviting Master KG to come to Palestine, and there have been a number of awareness-raising engagements with the artist and his management of the politics of the Palestinian struggle. Oh, for anybody's allowed to come in, Monty. Yeah, it's open to anybody. Well, I mean, not anybody, but yes, you're welcome to. The fact that Jerusalem as an idea represents a longing for more than has come before could perhaps also explain the curious absence of Americans from the dance challenge crazing the world right now. It was the Massachusetts colonizer John Winthrop who inserted the vision of a new Jerusalem in the Gospel of St. Matthew into the image of the United States, the founding exceptionalism upon which it would forever conceive itself as a beacon of hope and progress for the rest of the world. As the United States now decidedly proves itself to be a failed state, it renders the majority of the world, who by force or coercion adopted its version of liberalism, failed as well, with the global inability to handle a pandemic the surest testament. You didn't do anything wrong. I don't understand like the point of like what you're typing about. Like, people have organized for climate action for such a long time and it hasn't exactly worked. I'm not disagreeing with you that organization isn't important, but it's just like what has been. I just haven't understood the point of any of your comments. They just haven't like provided anything to the conversation. Yeah, it's nothing that you did wrong. It's just like what was the purpose? I mean, the whole article was about organizing the Anda Galanda and praising the people that have done the white coat protests and the sit-ins and the disruption of gas flows and oil flows. It gave shout-outs to Extinction Rebellion for the organizing that they were doing. We've been saying how great of a job Sunrise Movement has attempted to give. So I don't know. I just didn't get it. What then is Jerusalem, if not the finest distillation of a global desire for another city on a hill, and not by simply turning to another great power as America's ready replacement? China is not the world's savior, but one that, like the dance challenge itself, believes in the possibility of collective subjectivity. Of course, this subjectivity can collapse into forms that are reactionary rather than emancipatory. As Zwide Nwandwe writes, there is not much separating the rainbow nationalism of the kind uplifting South Africans through the dance challenge from the xenophobia at the same time proliferating through social media demanding that the government put South Africans first. It's not enough that there is widespread dissatisfaction about our society, as it is underscored by a desire for something better. Content must be given to what that better could possibly be. I won't rag on you anymore. I understand that you meant to contribute. I just didn't see it contributing. Sorry. Maybe it's something that I fucked up. I don't know. In a recent episode of AIAC Talk, partially devoted to talking through Malawi's recent elections, Sean Jacobs and I addressed a question to panelists which dwelled on how Malawi's new leader, Lazarus Chakwera, is a theologian, one known to refer to citizens as being part of his flock. Our reason in asking this was to understand if this was a sign Malawi could possibly be headed toward some of the more same demagogic and autocratic leadership that characterizes so much of the rest of this continent. Yet in the eyes of Chikawanda and media scholar Jimmy Kainja, this fact about the new president was unremarkable. Much as Malawi is a religious country, this is not why Chakwera was elected. In Kainja's words, Malawi is a different place now. Its people have no time for the usual nonsense of the political class that they've endured since gaining independence, and now trust in their competence as citizens. It is this spirit of self-determination which enveloped Malawi and saw ordinary citizens play an active role in monitoring and overseeing the elections without foreign observers, going so far as tracking and giving hourly updates on the flights carrying the ballots. And it is that spirit of self-determination that is quietly sweeping through the continent as citizens respond to the crisis of global capitalism exacerbated by the pandemic. It's easy to take an isolated look at the successful management of COVID-19 as a public health crisis on the continent and think that the worst is over and Africa has impressed, but the truth is we're only just beginning to grapple with the socioeconomic fissures that COVID-19 laid bare and worsened. We're witnessing an ongoing wave of mobilization in the continent challenging the excesses of neoliberalism. In Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Zimbabwe, and elsewhere, South Africa's trade unions and social movements are preparing for a season of nationwide strike action, one bringing together the largest trade union federation, which is aligned with the ruling party, the African National Congress, and its closest competitor. Of course, the efforts might fail, and no doubt governments will continue to use COVID-19 gathering restrictions as a pretext for repression. But the sense you get is that, for the first time in a long time, there's belief that self-determination can only be understood as a collective achievement, for creating institutions in our society by guaranteeing the conditions of life for all. These are achievements that have to be fought for politically, and no matter how bad things get, they won't come from the benevolence of an outside actor. The fate of Africa is determined not by the state of the West or China, but only by its people themselves. Maybe what is becoming stronger as we search for a new city on the hill is the conviction that we're going to build it ourselves. Republished from Africa is a Country. "21 tabs left." Wait, they all fit on one screen? That can't be true. Okay, it does. Okay, so I wanted to make sure that I don't actually have to read this one. Okay, yeah, this article is old. I can just read this one. Saudi Arabia fails in a bid for a seat on the United Nations Human Rights Council. China, Russia, and Cuba win seats as analysts question whether human rights violators should be elected to the council. Saudi Arabia failed in its attempt to become a member of the UN Human Rights Council for the next 3-year term starting on the 1st of January, while China, Russia, and Cuba were elected on Tuesday in a vote that caused an outcry among human rights defenders. Russia and Cuba ran unopposed. Saudi Arabia and China vied for membership in a 5-nation race for 4 spots, with Pakistan, Uzbekistan, and Nepal. Pakistan got 169, Uzbekistan 164, Nepal 150, China 139, Saudi Arabia 90. 15 countries were elected to the 47-nation council on Tuesday. The HRW has claimed that China and Saudi Arabia are two of the world's most abusive governments. Shah said the withdrawal of the United States from the UNHRC because of its bias against Israel in 2018 has not affected the legitimacy of the body. Hello, Ella Jackson. Gotta switch into Vivaldi browser. They have tab groups now. I use this, I have one tab if I ever wanted to condense them all into one. So I can click this button up here. And this condenses all of my tabs into one thing that I can more easily read. The stream's better than it used to be. Some days we used to go through 100 articles. I am doing a new show, Saturday mornings, everybody. Thinking of starting a show each Saturday a.m., smaller streamer Saturday. I'd probably let up to 5 people on at a time to talk about their channels, their politics, their projects, and content, and keep it going for a good few hours. I don't really want to have more than 4 or 5 people on at a time, so it's not too difficult to get some words in, and I'm definitely interested in a few one-on-one hangs as well. So, if anybody is looking for Saturday content, I'm going to try to be firing up the stream by 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Very EU-friendly hours. Very EU-friendly hours. Very hangover-friendly hours, if there's any party animals on Friday nights. Okay. Annual inflation tops 200% in September as food prices soar. 212% inflation last month on surging food and transport prices. Fucking God. Inflation's been rising since before the military's overthrow of Omar al-Bashir in April 2019. The economy has suffered from decades of United States sanctions and mismanagement under al-Bashir, who ruled the country since the 1989 military coup. They have close to $60 billion in foreign debt. Oh, God. Oh, God. The pound is crashing, too. Officially, 57 Sudanese pounds to $1, but on the black market, it's 250 to $1. Fuck. God damn it. God damn it. I am terrified that this is going to be the headline after about 40 different countries next year. I'm very, very concerned for a lot of nations because they have too much debt denominated in dollars. I think this is the biggest story that isn't covered enough, is what's going to happen next year to all these nations who cannot pay their debts, can't service their debts. I've been trying to tell people, been trying to say it for a long time. So if you've been around here, you've heard. In a shocker to nobody, Israel approves the first West Bank settler homes since the Gulf deals. More than 2,000 Israeli settlement units have been approved for construction in the occupied West Bank. Are these mostly African countries? It's going to be Middle Eastern countries too. It's going to be Asian countries. Indonesia, Malaysia, Turkey, Yemen, Lebanon, Iran, Brazil, Argentina, Honduras, Guatemala. No. So it's not. Global South is going to... No. Yeah, I actually am with Revolt Rise here. I think the dollar has a potential to go parabolic, as people might have to raid Forex markets in order to get dollars to pay their debts. And I actually think that there is an international dollar liquidity shortage. There are not enough dollars in the international community for them to pay their debts. And this is going to force them to privatize their industries. It's going to force them to go into austerity. It's going to force them to cut their social programs. This is absolutely devastating. It's already happening in Argentina. It's already happening in Venezuela, in Turkey, in Sudan, in Zambia. It's going to happen to Nigeria, to Niger, to Iran, to Lebanon. It's going to eventually happen to Jordan when they depeg their currency from the dollar. No, this is going to be an absolutely global contagion. And it's not going to be good at all. Well, they have that every 10 years because they've just been pillaged by the IMF. Ooh, I don't know. Wait, collect all of the Islamic... Do you think that you mean like a Neo-Ottoman Empire? I don't know. I mean, maybe Syria, but are they really going to be able to... Maybe they could unite Syria and Lebanon. Maybe. But I can't see Armenia or Azerbaijan or Jordan or Bahrain or Oman or Iraq or Afghanistan. You think so? I need to let this one simmer in my mind a little bit, because I don't think they have the money to do it right now. The lira is getting destroyed right now, Revolt Rise. I mean, maybe they're going to try to take Libya, but I'm not denying that you don't have like a position here. I just have to think about this one a little bit more. So in a couple days, we'll retouch on that when I can let it percolate a little. We are 3 hours into the program. to anybody who wants to drop a little donation my way. We are actually doing well on the goals. So we're about halfway through the month, and we're about halfway through the donut goals. I mean, maybe Revolt Rise. I don't know. I gotta think. And thank you for challenging me. And thank you for bringing like ideas into my mind. Israel approves the first West Bank settler homes since the Gulf deals. You all remember when they said, "Oh, we're gonna take a break, and we're not going to do this"? Well, the approvals came less than a month after the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain signed agreements to normalize relations with Israel, which in turn pledged to freeze its plans to annex swaths of the West Bank. Well, what are they doing now? 2,000 more homes are expected to be approved on Thursday. Netanyahu is moving ahead at full steam towards solidifying the de facto annexation of the West Bank. Okay. We have 4 more Jacobin articles. I might actually save some of them for tomorrow, just because of how long they are, but we'll see. Yeah, no. Revolt. Like, there's a theory with what you're coming. I can't really deny that that's not what the attempt is. I just don't know if it could be successful. I'm going to cover this article quickly that I'm about to click on. I don't like talking about United States-China relations. I am very concerned that the way it gets weaponized here in the United States, the anti-China rhetoric coming from the Conservative Party in the United States is very strong at the moment, stemming from Donald Trump to Mike Pompeo to senior ranking members inside of the House and the Senate. But I do have to cover this story from China a little bit here. It seems to have actually happened. So, China holds a new naval drill as Xi steps up the military rhetoric. Chinese president calls for a speedier upgrade of military equipment as he urges soldiers to focus on war preparedness. So this article is stating the state-owned Global Times quoted the country's maritime safety agency as saying that drills were taking place in the Bohai Sea and that he is telling people to focus on war preparedness and combat capabilities. Earlier on Tuesday, Xi inspected the elite Chinese Navy and Marine Corps stationed in Guangdong province in the south, during which he called for a speedier upgrade to forge a powerful troop with battle-wise soldiers. We all know that tensions have been escalating in the South China Sea. We know the United States has sent naval craft carriers through there. So, keep an eye on it. I don't really think that China is the aggressor in United States-China relations, but the United States doesn't really... Okay, so I'm just not going to touch your comments. They're not really in conflict with India. They're in a scuffle, but I wouldn't say like open conflict. I actually get to say this and it to be true. They're actually throwing rocks at one another. They're actually throwing rocks at one another. Legitimately, what's happening in the Galwan Valley near the Ladakh region. Okay. We're going to pick Well, since we just talked about the Israel one, how about we cover this Israel story? Jeez. Get prepared, everybody. Long article again. But we're gonna do this one. You should stop buying any products from China then. New person that just came into the channel. Anything that you've purchased that was manufactured in China, you're helping out their economy. So I would like you to stop purchasing any of the goods that you have. And I'm just going to ask you kindly of this one. Would you mind going into a different community? I don't mean to be too antagonistic. I'm not in the mood to go down this conversation. We just covered MK Ultra today and all the CIA experimentation on American civilians from the 1950s to the 1970s. And I also have a book sitting right near me here called The Jakarta Method. If you're looking for anything to read about some of the horrible actions the United States has done, I would recommend checking out this book by Vincent Bevins. You wrote a book about the CIA. Would you like to send it to me so I could read it? Or can I buy one? Where can I buy this book? Okay, cool. Yeah, we read, let me find the Jacobin piece. Thank you. I appreciate you dipping out. Where was the Jacobin CIA piece? Control F, MK. Here it is. This was the one we read. The True Story of MK Ultra and the CIA Mad Scientist. It was it was pretty good. It wasn't too revelatory. If you're familiar with it, you're not going to learn a ton out of it, but if you're unfamiliar, it's a good read. We do have to go through the Jakarta Method someday. I'll have to. Well, do you know what I think we'll do? I think we'll watch the interview that Vincent Bevins did with Glenn Greenwald. And actually, you know what? I do want to get Vincent on the show. Does he have a Twitter? Yeah, he does. I'm gonna try to get Vincent on the show. I think that'd be pretty cool. So I'll send a message over. You'd love to discuss it, just saying. We have a lot of content to do together, Revolt Rise. I'm happy to put people on my platform that are more intelligent and well-versed than I am. So I think that you would be a good addition to the viewership base. I have a feeling that you are pretty well-versed in a lot of different topics that I'm not exactly the most versed in. So we can definitely get together to do something like this. For sure. I can't believe I wasn't following Vincent before this. Yikes. Okay. I need to stretch one more time. And I'm going to go to the bathroom. Oh, okay. So is this the one where they're trying to tie Manson to being a part of MK Ultra, and they think that the CIA was dosing Manson as well? Interesting. I'll have to check this. Yeah, I'll check this. I do want to go to the bathroom super quick, so let's go with. Wow. This is probably good. if I get raided, just try to keep the raiders here. I'm gonna be back in a minute and a half.
I'm tired of being what you want me to be, feeling so faithless, lost under the surface. Don't know what you're expecting of me, but under the pressure of walking in your shoes, every step that I take is another mistake to you. I've become so numb, I can feel you there. Become so tired, so much more aware. I'm becoming this. All I want to do is be more like me and be less like you. Can't you see that you're smothering me, holding too tightly, afraid to lose control? 'Cause everything that you thought I would be has fallen apart right in front of you. Every step that I take is another mistake to you, and every second I waste is more than I can take. I've become so numb, I can feel you there. Become so tired, so much more aware.
Really amazing duo. Ooh. Yeah, that would be an interesting book, Revolt Rise. You can promote your book in here if it's for sale. You can definitely link it in. I'm not you don't feel compelled that you can't. Oh, for sure. Yeah, we'll talk prosynced. So also, but one thing I have to tell you, prosynced. Whatever I've done, while it is slightly successful, I must tell you that I've put in a lot of time and the audience still isn't the largest. So Twitch just takes either a few lucky bounces or a shit ton of time. Where is the tweet that I'm looking for? I'm up to... God, where is it? Here. I'm up to 2,900 hours streamed. So I have just tried to grind and grind and grind. Now it has mostly worked. But it's a grind, and you gotta hope that it works out. Oh, gladly. It was supposed to be in print by now. COVID has screwed up. Oh, okay. Cool. Oh, hell yeah. Oh, nice. That's awesome. I'm getting a DM from somebody. Okay, let's read the Israel article. Have I heard of the Black Vault? Ooh. Hello, CIA. Did I make it onto your watch list yet? I like this. Thank you. Okay. 2 decades after the peace process expired between the Camp David and Taba summits, many look back at nostalgia at the Oslo Accords between Israel and the PLO, but historian Ian Pape argues that the failure of Oslo to deliver Palestinian sovereignty was baked into the process from the start. Oh, this could be a good. This sounds good. I'm excited for this one. Yeah, I am definitely excited for this one. On the 13th of September 1993, the Palestinian Liberation Organization and the Israeli government signed the Oslo Accords with great fanfare. The agreement was the brainchild of a group of Israelis who were part of the think tank Moshav, led by the Deputy Foreign Minister Yossi Beilin. Their assumption was that a convergence of factors provided an opportune historical moment for imposing a solution on the Palestinian side. The success of the more dovish Labour Party in Israel's 1992 elections on the one hand, and the drastic erosion in the PLO's international standing because of Yasser Arafat's support for Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait on the other. Is this large enough for you all to read? We could go this way. If the words on the screen are ever not big enough for you all to read, immediately let me know. I always intend to have it be that you can read along as well. So if it's ever fuzzy or in like a bad frame or anything like that, please tell me. That way, we can get it fixed. If you're on mobile, I can't help you. The architects of the Accords assumed that the Palestinians were in no position to resist an Israeli diktat, which represented the maximum that the Jewish state was willing to concede at that time. The best these representatives of the Israeli peace camp could offer was two Bantustans, a reduced West Bank, and an enclaved Gaza Strip that would enjoy some of the symbolism of statehood while in practice remaining under Israeli control. Thank you for having a 1-hour-old account. I will see you tomorrow. Nice that I have rent-free space in your head. Moreover, this arrangement would have to be declared as the end of the conflict. Any further demands, such as the right of return for the Palestinian refugees or changes in the status of the Palestinian minority inside Israel, were excised from the peace agenda. Recipe for disaster. This diktat was a new version of older Israeli ideas that had informed the so-called peace process since 1967. The first was the so-called Jordanian option, which would mean partitioning geographically or functionally control over the occupied territories between Israel and Jordan. The Israeli labor movement endorsed this policy. The second was the idea of a limited Palestinian autonomy in these territories, which was at the heart of the peace talks with Egypt in the late 1970s. These various ideas, the Jordanian option, Palestinian autonomy, and the Oslo formula had one thing in common. They all suggested partitioning the West Bank between Jewish and Palestinian areas, with the future intent of integrating the Jewish part into Israel, while keeping the Gaza Strip as an enclave connected to the West Bank by a land bridge that Israel would control. Oslo differed from the previous initiatives in several ways. The most important one was that the PLO was Israel's partner in this recipe for disaster. It should be said, though, that the organization, to its credit, has not to this day accepted the Oslo Accords as a process that has been concluded. Its participation and the international recognition it received was the one positive, or at least potentially positive, aspect of Oslo. The negative aspect of PLO participation was the fact that a unilateral Israeli policy of incremental annexation and partition of the occupied territories now received legitimacy from an agreement that the PLO leadership had signed. Another difference was the involvement of an allegedly professional and neutral academic outfit in facilitating the accords. Norway's Fafo Research Foundation took charge of the mediation efforts. It adopted a methodology which was very advantageous to the Israelis and disastrous for the Palestinians. In essence, it was a search for the best that the stronger party was willing to offer, followed by an attempt to coerce the weaker party into an acceptance. There was no urgency for the side defined as the weaker one. The whole process became one of imposition. A bitter pill. We had been there before. The United Nations Special Committee on Palestine, UNSCOP, back in 1947-1948 adopted a similar approach. The result was catastrophic. The Palestinians, who were the indigenous population and the majority in the land, had no impact on the proposed solution. When they rejected it, the United Nations ignored their position. The Zionist movement and its allies imposed partition on them by force. When Oslo won, the first set of mostly symbolic agreements was signed. The disastrous lack of any Palestinian input did not come to light immediately. Those agreements included not only mutual recognition between the Israel and the PLO, but also the return of Yasser Arafat and the wider PLO leadership to Palestine. This part of the agreement created an understandable euphoria among some Palestinians as it concealed well the real purpose of Oslo. This sugarcoating of a bitter pill was soon removed with the next set of agreements, known as the Oslo II Accord in 1995. Even the feeble Arafat found them hard to accept, and the Egyptian president Hosni Mubarak literally forced him to sign the pact in front of the world's cameras. Once again, as in 1947, the international community proceeded with a, quote, solution, quote, that catered to Israel's needs and ideological visions while completely ignoring Palestinian rights and aspirations. And once the more underlying principle of the solution was partition. In 1947, the Zionist settler movement had been offered 56% of Palestine and went on to take 78% by force. The Oslo II Accord offered Israel another 12% of historical Palestine, consolidating the status of Greater Israel over 90% of the country and creating two Bantustans in the rest of the area. If there's anybody new to the channel, don't forget to hit the follow button. In 1947, the proposal was to partition Palestine between a Jewish and Arab state. The narrative spun by Israel, FAFO, and the international actors involved in the Oslo mediation was that the Palestinians had lost an opportunity for such a state due to the irresponsible, rejectionist position they adopted in 1947. Thus, didactically, they were offered this time a much smaller space and downgraded political entity, definitely not a state by any stretch of the imagination. Sorry, semi-important DM. I need to figure this out super fast. Okay. Oslo II created a geography of disaster that enabled Israel to stretch over additional parts of historical Palestine while enclaving the Palestinians within two Bantustans, or, to put it differently, by partitioning the West Bank and the Gaza Strip into Jewish and Palestinian areas. Area A was under the direct rule of the Palestinian Authority, the PA, with the semblance of statehood but none of the powers. Area B was jointly ruled by Israel and the PA, but effectively by Israel, and Area C was ruled exclusively by Israel. Recently, incrementally, this zone has been de facto annexed to Israel. The means of achieving that annexation have included military and settler harassment of Palestinian villagers, some of whom had already left their homes, the declaration of vast areas as training grounds for the army or ecological green lungs from which the Palestinians are barred, and finally constant transformations of the land regime to grab more land for new settlements or the expansion of old ones. By the time Arafat arrived at Camp David in 2000, the Oslo map had unfolded clearly and in many ways created irreversible facts on the ground. The major feature of the post-Oslo cartography were the Bantustanization of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, the official annexation of the Greater Jerusalem area, and the physical separation of the West Banks north and south. Others were no less important: the disappearance of the right of return from the peace agenda and the continued Judaization of Palestinian life inside Israel by expropriation of land, spatial strangulation of villages and towns, maintenance of exclusive settlements and towns for Jews, and the passing of serious laws institutionalizing Israel as an apartheid state. Later on, when it proved too costly to maintain a settler presence in the midst of the Gaza Strip, Israel's leaders revised the Oslo map and logic to include a new method of sustaining it, imposing a land siege and maritime blockade of Gaza for its refusal to be another Area A under PA rule. A red and blue Dow symbol. Okay. Check the announcements. Okay. Interesting. Okay, back to work. After Rabin. Is it Rabin or Robin? I don't know. Rabin or Robin. The geography of disaster, very much as in 1948, was the result of a peace plan. Since 1995 and the signing of the Oslo II Agreement, more than 600 checkpoints. Rabin. Oh, wow, thank you. Rabin. Okay. Since 1995 and the signing of the Oslo II Agreement, more than 600 checkpoints have robbed the people of the occupied territories of their freedom and movement between the villages and towns and between the Gaza Strip and West Bank. Life was administered in areas A and B by the civil administration, a quasi-military outfit willing to provide permits only in return for full collaboration with the security services. The settlers continued their vigilante attacks on Palestinians and their appropriation of the land, the Israeli expropriation. The Israeli army with its special units entered Area A and the Gaza Strip at will, arresting, wounding, and killing Palestinians. The collective punishment of house demolitions and long curfews and closures also continued under the peace agreement. Shortly after Oslo II was signed, Israel's Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated in November 1995. We will never know whether he would have wanted or been able to influence the developments in a more positive way. Those who succeeded him until 2000, Shimon Peres, Benjamin Netanyahu, and Ehud Barak, fully supported the transformation of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip into two mega-prisons, where movement in and out, economic activity, daily life, and survival all depended on Israel's goodwill, a rare commodity at the best of times. The Palestinian leadership under Yasser Arafat swallowed these bitter pills for various reasons. It was hard to give up the semblance of presidential power, a sense of independence in some aspects of life, and above all, a naive belief that this was a temporary state of affairs to be replaced by a final settlement leading to Palestinian sovereignty. It's noteworthy that this leadership signed an accord that does not mention anywhere in its official paperwork the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. The Camp David mirage. For a brief moment in 1999, it seemed as if there were a basis for such optimism. The right-wing government of Benjamin Netanyahu gave way to one headed by the labor leader Ehud Barak. Rhetorically, Barak declared his commitment to the accord and its final implementation. However, due to a rapid loss of his majority in the Knesset, he and U.S. President Bill Clinton, embroiled at the time in the Monica Lewinsky affair, rushed Yasser Arafat into an ill-prepared and haphazard summit in the summer of 2000. The Israeli government recruited a huge number of experts and prepared mountains of documents with one purpose in mind: to impose the Israeli interpretation of a final settlement on Arafat. According to their experts, the end of the conflict would involve the annexation of big settlement blocks to Israel, a Palestinian capital in the village of Abu Dis, and a demilitarized state subject to Israeli economic control and security domination. The final deal did not include any serious reference to the right of return, and of course, as with the Oslo Accords themselves, it totally ignored the Palestinians in Israel. The Palestinian side recruited the Adam Smith Institute in London to help them in their preparations for the hasty summit. They produced some thin documents, which in any case were not considered relevant by Barak and Clinton. These two gentlemen were in a hurry to get the process concluded within 2 weeks, purely for the sake of their own domestic survival. Both needed a quick achievement to boast about shades here of Donald Trump's catastrophic handling of the COVID-19 crisis and Israel's peace with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain sold as a great triumph for his administration. Since time was of the essence, they devoted the 2 weeks to exerting enormous pressure on Arafat to sign a done deal prepared beforehand in Israel. Arafat pleaded with the two that he needed a tangible achievement to display upon his return to Ramallah. He hoped that he could at least announce a freeze on settlements and/or recognition of the PLO's right to Jerusalem, as well as some sort of principled understanding of the importance of the right of return for the Palestinian state. Barak and Clinton totally ignored his predicament. Before Arafat departed for Palestine, the two leaders accused him of being a warmonger. The Second Intifada. Upon his return, Arafat, as Senator George Mitchell reported later, was quite passive and did not plan any drastic moves such as an uprising. Israel's security services reported to their political bosses that Arafat was doing all he could to pacify the more militant members of Fatah, and still hoped to find a new diplomatic solution. Those around Arafat felt betrayed. There was an atmosphere of the helplessness until the provocative visit to Haram al-Sharif by the Israeli opposition leader Ariel Sharon. Sharon's exercises in coattailing triggered a wave of demonstrations to which the Israeli army responded with particular brutality. They had suffered a recent humiliation at the hands of Lebanon's Hezbollah movement, which forced the Israeli Defense Forces to withdraw from southern Lebanon, and thus allegedly eroded Israel's power of deterrence. Palestinian policemen decided that they could not stand by, and the uprising became more militarized. It spilled over into Israel, where trigger-happy racist police were only too pleased to show with what ease they could kill Palestinian demonstrators who were citizens of the Israeli state. The attempt by some Palestinian groups, such as Fatah and Hamas, to respond with suicide bomb attacks backfired as Israeli retaliatory operations, culminating in the 2002 infamous Defensive Shield operation, led to the destruction of towns and villages and further expropriation of land by Israel. Another response was the construction of the apartheid wall that separated Palestinians from their business, fields, and centers of life. Israel effectively reoccupied the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. In 2007, the A, B, and C map of the West Bank was restored. After the Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, Hamas took over, and the territory was subjected to a siege that continues to this day. From the ashes. Many Israeli politicians and strategies are confident that they have broken the Palestinian spirit. Precisely 27 years after the signing of the Oslo Accords, the White House lawn hosted a new ceremony for the Abraham Accords, an agreement for peace and normalization between Israel and two Arab states, the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. I didn't know that it was 27 years to the date. Mainstream American and Israeli media assure us that this is the last nail in the coffin of Palestinian obstinacy, the reason that the PA will have to accept whatever Israel offers, as there is no one left to help them if they reject their proposals. But Palestinian society is one of the youngest and most educated in the world. The Palestinian national movement rose from the ashes of Nakba in the 1950s and could do so again. No matter how powerful the Israeli military is, and no matter how many more Arab states conclude peace treaties with Israel, the Jewish state will remain in existence with millions of Palestinians under its control within an apartheid regime. The failure of Camp David in 2000 was not the end of a genuine peace process. There had never been such a process. Ever since the Zionist movement arrived in Palestine in the late 19th century, it was the official establishment of the Apartheid Republic of Israel. It remains now to be seen for how long the world will accept it as a legitimate and viable, or whether it will accept the de-Zionization of Israel, with the creation of one democratic state embracing all of historical Palestine, is the only just solution for this problem. That was a long article. That was a very long article. It was a very good one, for sure. For sure. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 more to go. Article byline. What's the I don't know what byline means. Holy shit. Oh, like who wrote it? Fuck. Ian Pape. Must be this person. I would have to imagine, followed by Mehdi Hassan. Yeah, this is the person. George Galloway, Abby Martin, Max Blumenthal, Mehdi Hassan, Mike Preissner. Yeah, definitely this person. You don't follow many people. Interesting. Okay. The push goes forward. Eastern Mediterranean crisis. United States demands Turkey end the calculated provocation. Ankara has sent a research ship back to the contested waters, prompting an angry response from Athens and its allies. We all know Turkey is trying to drill off the coast of Cyprus, coast of Greece. France has vehemently come out against it. The United States has come out against it. So yesterday, the United States demanded that Turkey pull back an energy research ship, calling it a calculated provocation. Coercion, threats, intimidation, and military activity will not resolve tensions in the Eastern Med. We urge Turkey to end the calculated provocation and immediately begin exploratory talks with Greece. You know what? I think I am going to check this one out. Oh yeah, for sure. That's exactly what it is.
In February 2018, an Italian oil company found something in the eastern Mediterranean. A huge gas field right off the coast of Cyprus. This field was part of the region's vast gas deposits, estimated to be as big as 3.5 trillion cubic meters. That's enough potential energy to power the United States for nearly a decade. Tension is mounting in the eastern Mediterranean over these discoveries as countries vie for control in an area rich with unclaimed resources. The potential for military action is rising as neighbors forge new alliances and old wounds flare up in the regional scramble to secure energy rights for the coming century and beyond.
Thank you for coming by, though.
It's no surprise that everyone in the region wants as big a piece of the pie as they can get. And for the most part, they've all claimed their shares. Egypt has started to exploit its oil and gas reserves and is now a regional exporter. Europe has long been wanting to cut its reliance on Russian gas, and the energy-hungry trading bloc would be an ideal market for Eastern Mediterranean natural gas. So what's the sticking point? The main cause of friction here is Cyprus, and the overlapping and competing claims different groups have made over it. Since a bloody conflict took place in 1974, the island has remained divided between Greek and Turkish Cypriots. The southern half, the majority Greek Republic of Cyprus, is recognized by the United Nations. The Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus is not internationally recognized, but its autonomy is nonetheless guaranteed by Turkey. Relations have got so bad between the fractious neighbors that both sides have threatened military action to defend what they say are their territorial rights over the sea. Normally, these territorial rights are defined by the UN's Convention of the Law of the Sea. This document allocates up to 12 nautical miles from any nation's shore as its territorial waters, and up to 200 nautical miles as its EEZ, or Exclusive Economic Zone. As the name suggests, anything found in or under the ocean out to this distance is its own, exclusively. But unlike Greece, the Republic of Cyprus, and most of the world's nations, Turkey did not sign that UN convention. Instead, it has its own way of deciding limits of EEZs. Turkey uses the continental shelf theory, which says that a country's landmass, and therefore the EEZ, extends underwater to the very edge of the continental shelf. Using this theory, they've refused to accept that islands can have these zones. They say any island's influence is only as far as 12 nautical miles. These two calculation methods have triggered a cascade of claim and counterclaim. Early last year, the energy ministers of Cyprus, Greece, Egypt, Jordan, Israel, and Palestine all met in Cairo to discuss cooperation and the setting up of the East Med Gas Forum. Turkey was pointedly not invited.
Cyprus has taken steps in order to delineate its exclusive economic zones. It's planning in the future, when it will be feasible, to export its gas through a pipeline, the famous East Med pipeline, that will transport Israeli and Cypriot gas to Greece and further to European Union markets. It's a rather contested project. It's a very expensive project. It will be the lengthiest undersea pipeline in the world, almost 2,000 kilometers. These are highly symbolic acts. Whether the pipeline will happen or not, it shows that there is an agreement. It shows that there is a strong cooperation between Cyprus, Egypt, and Israel in the area.
Turkey is feeling diplomatically isolated and left out of this emerging system of cooperation. With a rapidly growing population and a reliance on imports for 90% of its natural gas, Turkey is desperate to secure its own regional supplies. By refusing to acknowledge Cyprus's EEZ, Turkey does also not accept the bilateral deals Cyprus has made with Greece, Lebanon, Egypt, and Israel. Instead, Turkey has made its own deals. With its large armed forces, Turkey is now involved not just in northern Syria, but also in the rapidly expanding war in Libya. In November, Turkey and UN-recognized Government of National Accord of Libya signed a bilateral maritime deal that carved up a large portion of the eastern Mediterranean between them. Using their continental shelf method, they allocated themselves blocks for drilling and gas exploration. But several of these blocks were just off the Greek islands of Crete and Carpathos. This immediately invoked heavy condemnation from Greece and the international community as not only illegal, but a major destabilizing move. Turkey's go-it-alone attitude is upsetting its neighbors. Last December, it sent armed drones to mine over exploration ships in contested waters. In May, a French aircraft carrier conducted drills off the coast of the island, where France felt Turkey had encroached on an area French oil companies were themselves exploring. In a clear message to Ankara, the United States announced in July that it would start training the Cypriot military. Turkey has now said it will send exploration ships into the contested blocks off Crete within months, with Greece responding by saying those vessels will be sunk. With so much at stake and so much wealth and security to be had, the region stands to greatly benefit if everyone's interests are satisfied. The Cypriot Republic has already requested a ruling from the International Court of Justice in The Hague on its and Turkey's overlapping claims, and both parties have much to gain from cooperation. However, as it stands, a single incident could unravel this tense and fragile peace, triggering a cascade of events that could easily draw the region into a devastating war.
Traditional economic models are not good at predicting things.
Thank you for the follow, boss. Appreciate that. Welcome to the news team. Hope you're having a good day. Yeah, that was a very well done piece. Very, very well done piece. I can never spell Mediterranean. I got it. Got it.
I do know, and I wrote the damn bill.
Callie Kami, you were watching a video of a person I'm trying to get on the show. Callie Kami, how was the video? I tweeted at Helen Landemore, and she said, "Thank you, happy to answer your questions." Yeah, I just sent it. I just tweeted people. What's the worst that can happen? You tweet at them, and then sometimes they say yes. Most times they don't respond. But she did say yes. And actually, another thing that I need to work on is, let me see. Oh God, it's gonna take me a long time to go back through this. I need to reach back out. Fuck. How about? Nope, still not there yet. Am I in my? No, I'm not in my tweets. That's why. I'm gonna shout you out in just a moment, Callie Kami. Welcome in, Raiders. I need to try to do something here. Okay, that might do it. Control F. Still no Joseph? Not even all the way down here yet? Gotta be. The fuck? Where's my tweet? Damn. I'm trying to get Peter Joseph on the show. And is that where it was? Here. Trying to get Peter Joseph to come on for an interview too. Watch the film Into Reflections. Thank you and your team for the tireless effort. So I need to find Peter's email and send an email over to him. But yeah, trying to get Helen Landemore and Peter Joseph on the show to have some talks, and then some other people might be able to hook me up with a couple other interviews too. So awesome that you were going over open democracy. Do you have the book yet? I know the book came out yesterday, but did you just watch the video, or did you get the book already? One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 more to go. I am going to try to work on Vincent Bevins. You pre-ordered the ebook? Ah, okay. Nice. Yeah, if she agrees to the interview, I'm going to have to like crush read the book real quick and see if we can put something together. I'm getting there because on my YouTube channel, I've now had I now have like a couple actual decent interviews to show people. I had Jan Nieuwenhoy come on to talk about monetary systems. That was like a pretty good one. I did one with a nuclear engineer PhD. I even have like a couple of other ones like back here that I can show people. The political economy podcasts were pretty good. So it's getting closer and closer to being able to do this. Democratic reason. Politics, collective intelligence, and the rule of many. Yeah, this seems good too. Add it to my list of more shit to do and read. These all look good. Economic statecraft, after repression, the development dilemma, the decline and rise of these all look good. Fuck me. $95. Holy fuck. Gonna pirate that one somewhere. $95. Another one. Okay, this one's only 20. This one's 35. My library might have it. Very, very true. Buy it or have it. Very true. I haven't... Is the Philadelphia library even open? Oh my god, I haven't been in a business. Well, actually, I could probably do, like, pickup. I bet you they could get the books for me. And I could just go and pick them up. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not paying attention to the Trump speech. Okay. We are 4 hours into the program, everybody. We've covered about 40 different stories, pretty in-depth. It's been a really wonderful show today. So if you're a new viewer and you like talking about just like a broad swath of international news, it's been a great day today. I'm really, really enjoying how today's stream went. So click that follow button wherever it is around here, and I thank you for it. Man, Kali Kami, what I'm realizing is Jacobin articles take a long fucking time to read. What I was saying to my community earlier, I can read an Al-Jazeera article in like 3 minutes because you can skip, a bunch of the stuff. I'm just in it. But these Jacobin articles are really well read that you actually have to, read each word. I think you and I were talking about this the other day, actually. But this is also another good one. If you have a Jacobin subscription, Kali Kami, I think you would like this article. Let me find it for you. This one. This was a really fascinating piece. Really, really fascinating piece. It made me think about what my activism next year might look like. Okay. Thank you so much for the raid. I really appreciate that. United Nations urges Libyan rivals to prioritize national interests in the talks. I think it's like $20 a year for the sub. It's not anything like too ridiculous. It's cheaper than a lot of the other newspapers I sub to. The United Nations Libya envoy asks rival parties to place the national interest before political ambitions in the talks set to be held in November. Okay, what do we got here? The United Nations Libya envoy has urged rival Libyan parties to place the national interest before political ambitions when they meet next month for talks aimed at ending nearly 10 years of civil war. The North African country is dominated by armed groups, riven by local conflicts, and divided between two bitterly opposed administrations, the United Nations Unity Government, United Nations recognized unity government based in Tripoli, and an eastern-based rival backed by renegade military commander Khalifa Haftar. Neighboring Tunisia is set to host talks in early November, which will include representatives from civil society, tribesmen, political leaders, and members of bodies representing both administrations. What we want to see in terms of participation is people who are not there for their own political aspirations but for their country. Asked whether Haftar or Unity Government Chief Fayez al-Sarraj would be present, she said participants would be able to take part on the condition that they remove themselves from consideration in high government positions. Interesting. This included membership of the key presidential council, the prime minister's job, and ministerial posts. The talks are intended to prepare for national elections. And here are the areas of major control. So, this is the... I always mess this up. LNA. Why am I so I can't? Okay, well this is the United Nations recognized one, and down here is the Khalifa Haftar reign. This is the tribesman reign, and I think a lot of the oil wells are down in this region down here. I'm pretty sure the oil is down around this way. Okay, so this is the LNA, this is the GNA. Why can't I just remember this? G, internationally recognized government. L. Okay. Okay. Moving forward. Yeah, it is a decent idea of trying to keep it a little bit better for negotiations. I would agree. All right. Also, if there's any new viewers, I'm starting a new show on Saturdays. A smaller streamer Saturday, probably let up to 5 people on at a time to talk about their channels, their politics, their projects, and content, and keep it going for a good few hours. So if anybody is looking for anything on your Saturday mornings, This will be around 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. A little bit early for you, Cali Kami. But it'll be going until like 12 or 1. So if you wake up later in the day, you'll be able to sneak on, into the afternoon part. It'll probably go for like 4 hours or so, 3 hours or so. We'll see how it goes. Something different to do. What could Turkey's latest S-400 missile tests mean? Turkey is set to carry out more tests of its controversial Russian S-400 anti-aircraft defense system. Patriot can only fire one missile at a time and go a quarter the distance, whereas the S-400s can track 249 miles. Wow. Damn. The Patriot missiles suck. Interesting. Moab on China? Wait, what? Mother of all bombs on China? Did something happen that I'm not aware of? We didn't. Don't. Please tell me you're not breaking news that we just dropped a Moab on China. If that's the case, I'm about to go to my underground bunkers. Oh, okay. All right. Whew. Scared me there for a second. Oh, we actually already covered this one before. Cool. Nice. We are getting there. I'm going to save these Jacobin articles for tomorrow. They just take a long time, and I'm starting to get a little bit mentally fatigued. Going for 4.5 hours. I'm trying to stretch my brain. I get tired sometimes. But we're gonna clear up these Al Jazeera articles. So you're going to have to check in tomorrow if you want to hear about the disaster of privatized banking in Mexico. The details of worker abuse at one of the world's largest logistics companies are appalling, and the hundreds of thousands of stranded maritime workers are the invisible victims of the pandemic. Those will have to be tomorrow. Oh, actually, we already even read this one too, about the United States wants to sell more weapons to Taiwan. But I guess we didn't get into the details of which ones, so... What kind of weapons are we trying to sell over there? Ooh. The administration proposed the sale of more sophisticated weaponry to the self-ruled island as China ratchets up pressure. So it seems like they want to sell the MQ-9 Reaper drones. They are doing land-based Harpoon anti-ship missiles made by Boeing. 100 cruise missiles. Oh, this might be interesting too. China's new navy. I actually kind of want to check this.
This is a photo of a shipyard in China. It shows 9 warships, a missile defense system, an aircraft carrier, and a hovercraft, all being built simultaneously in Shanghai. And this is just one of several shipyards churning out warships. All these ships are part of China's new navy, which started off as a coastal defense force protecting its shores, and has rapidly become a massive group of integrated fleets, capable of reaching further and further out as China becomes a global military power.
Actually, in case there's any conservatives in here, I'm going to watch this one on my own. We don't need any more anti-China rhetoric. Yeah, I'll check this on my own time. We did cover this story yesterday, but it's worth covering again. United States air raids target Taliban fighters advancing on a key Afghan city. The United States conducted targeted strikes in Helmand to defend Afghan troops, a military spokesman Colonel Sonny Leggett says. Oh, you're for sure right, Servants, but man, the neocons in the United States are getting uppity. They haven't had a war in a long time. They all want to go to war. The United States military in Afghanistan said its forces launched air raids against the Taliban to support Afghan government forces amid heavy fighting in the southern Helmand province. Fierce battles broke out in recent days after the Taliban attacked several security outposts on the outskirts of the capital of Lashkar Gah. 1,500 families reported to have fled the continued fighting. Yes, it is. Hello, Alexandru. Over the past 2 days, the U.S. FORA has conducted several targeted strikes in Helmand to defend ANDSF forces under attack by Taliban fighters. Consistent with the United States-Taliban agreement, they have and will continue to support the defense under the attack by the Taliban. After months of delays, the historic intra-Afghan talks kicked off in Doha in September, but the fighting has continued. I think a majority of the Taliban prisoners have been released, maybe like 4,700 of the 5,000, maybe even 4,900 of the 5,000. The troop drawdown is condition-based. The key is we're trying to end a war responsibly, deliberately, and do it on terms that guarantee the safety of the United States' vital national security interests that are at stake in Afghanistan, aka probably some fucking rare earth metals and some oils, and some shipping lanes in order to keep Iran secluded. Okay. You know,